back discussion and turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you are all well aware, the Council commissioned a study to be done by the Novak Group of the Public Works Department sometime back. They came forward and presented the results to the entire town council, and it was decided that we would seriously consider their recommendations. So Public Works got to work doing that immediately, had many meetings, spent many hours with their people to look at what parts of the study they concurred with. And, you know, obviously a consultant comes in, they don't know the organization as well as our director and our employees. It's not to say that we should ignore all of it, but it means that some things probably don't fit as well as others. So they spent a lot of time looking at the organizational aspects of it and are making recommendations. They worked many long hours with the subcommittee on this issue, and I think they've reached a consensus. They went back, brought a lot of information. I'll defer to the members of the subcommittee if they want to comment when appropriate, but these are the recommendations we think that we should go forward with. Some of them have price tags attached, so it's perfect timing to do it now before the budget. Others do not. We actually, over time, with some job descriptions, like last week with the parts person that we made full-time, and other recommendations we've already implemented. But I think it's noteworthy that it's a study that was not ignored. It wasn't shelved, wasn't sent to the library or to the attic. It's something that we actively looked at, and I think it's appropriate that we're implementing major portions of it for the betterment of the department and to save the taxpayers' money. And now Donald and Greg will present.
Welcome, gentlemen. You have the floor.
All right. Good evening. Here it is. You got it now? Is it on your screen?
They're not doing, no, they were doing it in the booth. So, I don't want to take over their job. It's kind of enough unpaying jobs. And one more, there we go.
I hear Alex coming.
Wait, is he still, go, so it's. I'll take his 5 minutes of salary, thank you.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Today we're talking about the Novak report and how we can implement certain things for this budget time. So just a kind of a brief recap, the final Public Works Organizational Effectiveness and Efficiency Study was issued on August 6th, 2018, and at which time Novak did present to Town Council again on that date. The draft implementation plan was received on September 17th, and that included 27 recommendations ranging from priority 1s, 2s, and 3s. And those priority 1 recommendations was reclassify the assistant director to a deputy director of operations, reclassify the deputy director to a deputy director of capital projects administration, implement a work order system, staff building maintenance to enable preventive maintenance, update the snow plan, and revise the seasonal hiring process. We have, through many meetings and we have concentrated on addressing priority 1 recommendations and also the low and no cost alternatives as well. Since then, we've had several DPW subcommittee presentations, discussions, once on November 15th and January 10th of 2019. Also, we've had several DPW division management meetings with all of our division managers, staff input and review numerous times, discussions with the town manager, again, DPW subcommittee meetings. We also take into account the FY19-20 budget considerations that are coming up. So this presentation, we're going to provide follow-up on the progress that we've had on Novak's recommendation by DPW division and what our proposed modifications to their recommendations are. Now, they gave us what their recommendations were a draft, and we took those things and worked it out in subcommittee and worked it out internally where we could have provided a better product using their recommendations as a base. And we're also seeking council input and approval tonight on several of those recommendations so we can move forward and just keep moving forward. We're going to provide the updated comparison on Novak and propose staffing modifications by division, and that's coming up. And I kept WPCF separate as their funding sources are different. So in addition to to those organizational changes, which we need you to, we're going to discuss tonight, they also included these other priority one recommendations: to implement a work order system, to revise the seasonal hiring process, and the update and communicate a new snow plan. Now, Greg's going to talk about the work order system.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. For the work order system, we did quite a bit of research, background research of what the options were for a comprehensive work order management system for facilities maintenance and preventative maintenance. We conducted a community listserv survey. We reviewed several different platforms. We did live web-based meetings with a service provider with an interesting name known as Dude Solutions. And we also reviewed, had a few meetings with the IT department along with Dude Solutions, as Dude Solutions was the forerunner in our research efforts. We are going ahead with the Dude Solutions work order management system, as it is probably the most commonly used system even locally here. A lot of our local regional towns are already or have recently brought Dude Solutions on board. The beauty of it is it can start very simple, and we can phase complexity, additional services. So to begin with, we're starting with just a very basic work order management system, which will provide a baseline or the foundation for several of the NOVAC recommendations, which centered around better management of work orders, facilities work orders, and preventative maintenance. The annual subscription cost associated with that is $23,000. It is prorated for the current fiscal year. DPW has the funds for that, and then IT will be handling most of that in the future. Okay.
We also looked at the seasonal hiring changes. Now, we have to budget for current and following fiscal years. This kind of makes it challenging because we're using people in May and June. They were also picked, which is a different fiscal year than July and August, and going through. So we were trying to speed up the process a little bit by advertising earlier, including other local outlets other than our town website. We're just trying to get out their reach as far as we can. We're trying to identify candidates and complete the interviews in May, if not before, and to do post-offer drug screens earlier, because instead of having people come on board, then we have to wait for everybody to come on to get drug screens. Sometimes it pushes up almost to the middle of June, almost the end of June, so it doesn't really help us with seasonal help. And we want to start in groups if possible to maximize training and get everybody on board earlier so we can maximize it all in one time, and there is no budget impact to that. Snow plan, we went through a comprehensive snow and ice control plan that's been updated, is on our website. We spent a lot of time internally coming up with ways, and the last time it was done was 9 years ago, but now the newest one's been discussed with the town manager, myself, and it is in place, and our goal is to review that annually and review as we need it. And again, there's no budget impact to that. Now, administration, you folks have the handouts from the last meeting, I believe. This was NOVAC's proposed structure, where there was two deputy directors, and the highway position was effectively eliminated from that, with the end goal of actually all division managers being replaced with that. And we decided that doesn't work for us. So we've kept the same structure now, where we have the director of public works, we have a deputy, we have our business ops, and basically keeping everybody where they are right now. Now, removing that second deputy director reduces the perception, again, that we're a top-heavy organization, even though we are 150, one of the largest other than the school. We're a pretty big employer in town. We use the budget constraints and reality to come up with these decisions. This isn't, if things were great and this was all pie in the sky, then we would do so. But again, we use a lot of just reality concepts when we decided to do this. And we do have the ability to address daily operations right now and strategic planning with existing staff. We removed the environmental health and safety position, which Chris created through HR, so that is no longer under our bailiwick anymore. And we're able to use available resources such as the underutilized travelers risk control. We have many good things online and in person that they help us with. We can use on-call consultants, internal staff, including our deputy director, Greg Abenel, whose primary function before is EH&S. And we have our town safety officer now who also can help pitch in. We are going to retain the highway RRM manager position. So those two, the deputy director and that position, are basically offset one another. We do want to change the title of that just to be more in line with all the other managers that we have, and it preserves that crew leader oversight, because that is two of the bigger divisions. We're talking almost 40 people between that, and with just a lot of customer interactions and the like. And that net labor impact is actually, we're saving $75,000 from Novak's recommendation. Fleet. We agreed with Novak's recommendations to basically go with, we're having a single shift with a fleet manager and one lead mechanic, 4 mechanics, and a parts manager, which you folks agreed, made it a full-time position last meeting. Now, there's some concerns that the subcommittee brought up, and one was if trucks need repair in the evening, like RRM trucks, what do we do? Typically, those are managed when the second shift was closed. But to lessen the impact, the DPW and the subcommittee also recommended purchasing an additional refuse truck, and realistic ones were for used off-the-lot rear loader that could be $100,000. So it really isn't that big of an impact. We don't need to bring anything brand new. This would be brought in if we needed it in like leaf season or whatever it is. If something was to break, we would be able to take this one out of our fleet, put the guys in there while they fix it on first shift. And again, and by going with a rear loader, it also, again, we don't have to rent an extra vehicles for the leaf season, so we already have that in there, so we are savings with that. Now, we did put in some CIP requests and for the above options, and we did not request for the new side loader, which we don't internally believe is the right decision. There's some concerns that there's not enough bays. We have 4 bays in the area, and we have 2 actually in where the highway trucks are housed, so they have a total of 6. We have 2 heavy-duty lifts and 2 light lifts. We have plenty of space. We addressed all that through subcommittee. There's plenty of space, plenty of lifts, and the biggest thing now is that the lead mechanic will take requests and do what he's actually been doing the drive-ins, emails, scheduling most of the work for others. Another concern was in converting that lead mechanic position, who was on second shift, to a parts manager, and what those really effects are. Our current equipment to mechanic ratio means we have 66 pieces of equipment for every mechanic that we have on right now. After the change, we would have 80 to 1, but there's a caveat to that. The third bullet says, on a previous 12-month work order history, we've had 425 entries for non-vehicle work, which is about 490 hours of time that our mechanics are spending on the phone, looking for parts, looking emails, calling up people, and whatever it is. So they spend a tremendous amount of time behind the computer instead of wrench time. What it also does not include are the smaller interruptions. Somebody comes in and says, hey, you got a nut and bolt, blah, blah, blah. We don't assign that to anything. Can you tighten this up? Can we do this? That's not included in that either. Because there's no way we could possibly, it would take us longer to write out the work order to change a bolt than it would be just to give them the bolt or the part to do it. So the actual amount of non-vehicle work time is considerably greater than what is recorded, just because of those interruptions, the phone calls and the like, deliveries. The increased the equipment to mechanic ratio is offset by the parts manager's position, which you folks agreed to or redid the job description last meeting. Now, all non-vehicle work should be handled by the parts manager, which includes taking in stock. We have to do underground storage tank daily readings and inspections. That's part of one of our mechanics' job is to do that. So we're taking them off the floor and having them do UST readings and inspections, maintaining inventory, picks up deliveries, safety and environmental compliance. All those things will be handled by that person. So yes, the piece of equipment per mechanic goes up, but we should have more wrench time and we should be able to handle that with easier. The lead mechanic, again, it was agreed by the union, the council approved it, and at the end, we're going to say some action items we need to have, you know, again, if that's the direction the council wants to go in, to eliminate second shift, that's what we are recommending, and there is no net impact to the budget to zero it out. We looked at chargeback. That's going to work considerably better when we have a full-time parts position in an electronic inventory system in place. There's a lot to that, and the budget changes, just we could not possibly work them out for this budget coming up. It's just, there's so much involved with how to bill. Is it by order, is it by week, by month? There's just so much needed, and to have that parts manager and first shift on really makes this position, and this chargeback system really makes it work. That's the only thing that's really gonna make it click, because we can't have our mechanics trying to figure out how much to charge. That's just, they would never be wrenching if we had them do that kind of thing. So there's a lot to it, and again, it's integral to the parts manager position and going for single shift. And Greg's gonna talk to you about buildings and grounds.
Okay, so for buildings and grounds and the custodial division, again, the first org chart is what has been proposed by Novak. The second chart is what DPW is proposing. And then the following few slides, we go through the differences between their recommendations and ours. So the next slide, the main concern that had been expressed with Novak's recommendation, and this has been discussed at DPW subcommittee, is the Novak's recommendation for significant increases to trade staffing. They were proposing at a total of 3 electricians, 2 HVAC technicians, 2 plumbers, and 2 carpenters. That's based on the current inventory of town and BOE facilities and grounds that we had at the time of the study. Our DPW recommendation is significantly different, and that takes into account DPW subcommittee discussions and, frankly, the reality of the upcoming budget season. So we are proposing 1 trade person per trade. And to clarify that, if we look at current state, many of you are probably aware that we do not have an HVAC technician or HVAC mechanic on staff. We're very fortunate in having a very energetic, very talented electrician who does some HVAC repair and maintenance work on an as-needed basis, and he's very good at it, and he's very open-minded about it. But for us to long-term rely on that arrangement is definitely not ideal. So we are hoping that you will approve our request to unfreeze the currently frozen HVAC mechanic position so that we can plan on staffing that. And that is with the assumption and the hope that when that person is in place and is fully oriented and comfortable with his role and what needs to get done, that our beloved electrician can return to his regular trade as a full-time electrician. Assuming that that gets done, we will then do much better with electrical repairs and maintenance and perhaps some preventative maintenance. That's the biggest impact. We feel strongly that we're currently doing fine with one full-time plumber who's doing necessary repair work and preventative maintenance, and one carpenter who is also currently fulfilling the needs. So if we can just have the one full-time electrician, one full-time HVAC mechanic, I think that would be a tremendous improvement to our effectiveness and our efficiency, at least for starters, and at least given the current budget situation. Down on the bottom of this slide, Novak had also proposed eliminating one laborer position in B&G. We are proposing to restore that position, which has been frozen since last budget season. We are fairly understaffed in terms of our ability to maintain the current town and BOE building and grounds portfolio. We are also proposing a slight modification to Novak's recommendation. They had recommended one part-time custodian. That was down from the 11. We are requesting to retain one additional part-time custodian, and that would be to cover the police department safety complex. There's been much back and forth on the subcommittee level about what is best, internal versus external labor for electrical and HVAC work. And there is no one clear answer to that. It's really, it has to be a hybrid of the two. The benefits of continuing with our internal staff is, well, we have the knowledge of the intimate knowledge of all our building mechanicals for the 34 some odd buildings that the town and BOE currently own or are responsible for. We're able to respond usually immediately to urgent and emergency situations. We've had numerous instances where we have attempted to contact contractors for emergency work, and they have been less than responsive and did not meet our urgent needs. A couple of other challenges we've had with relying too much on contractors is for longer-term projects, there's staffing inconsistencies. Sometimes we'll see a different face on different days of a project. How knowledgeable is the new face going to be of what the old face did the day before? There's also, it takes time and working with our buildings and our equipment to get to know them and their quirkiness and what's needed. And so if we're going through a lot of contractor staff, then that knowledge will often never be gained or will take forever to be gained, and ultimately they end up relying perhaps too much on our internal staff anyway, i.e. our electrician / HVAC person. I have a couple of numbers in here. We had discussed at the subcommittee level about what just labor costs were. We took the parts costs out. And just over the short period of July through December 2018, our contractor HVAC costs were almost $58,000, and our electrical costs were about $12,000. So our conclusion is contractors are best used as kind of a support for internal staff, especially with larger, highly technical repairs, equipment replacements, complex preventative maintenance projects, and large emergencies or multiple emergencies. Whoops. So the next slide shows our estimated net labor impact of what we're recommending versus what Novak recommended. And again, these numbers are labor cost differences of what they were envisioning for labor versus what we're envisioning for labor. So for custodial services, where we're basically in agreement with their recommendation, with that one exception of adding one part-time position. So that's a net decrease of labor cost of about $7,500. For building and grounds, it's a substantial labor cost savings for internal labor of $280,000 to just fully fund with a single tradesperson, our DPW staff. Okay.
So again, those savings are what, compared to what Novak had recommended, so. For Highway RRM, the Novak recommended having a Deputy Director of Operations in charge of that. We, again, through discussions and the like, we're going to keep that, we're requesting to keep the Highway RRM as in turn into a manager instead of an Assistant Director, just name it like everyone else, and to basically retain the people that we have, and also create two slash positions in Highway. Now, slash position is allowed to work in RRM and also in Highway. And RRM already has 3 slashes, so that'll give us 5 total slashes that those people can move back and forth to Highway or RRM depending on what the needs are. And that's what we're asking is for that. Novak did look at possibly removing one operator if we redid the way the whole pickup system, all our whole trash and recycling operated, and their schedule just didn't work for us. We want to keep all the people that we had there. Our cross training is already complete. Like I said about the slash positions, it's already complete, and it just creates more flexibility for Highway and RRM. And by doing so, having those 5 people on slashes now, so we're asking the council for change 2 of those to slashes. We'll have the rapid response team that was highly recommended. We could be proactive, quicker, and less disruptive, and our ability to respond to see-click fixes and should be significantly improved. But we have not yet determined the logistics of how that would work out. But again, if we have that ability of having 2 other slashes, we should be able to, it shouldn't take much to get that together. There's been some discussion about operating the RRM similar to private contractor. But we are currently updating the solid waste ordinance. Daniel and I are very close to sending it to the town attorney's office for their review. We're just about there, and we have done some significant research and just to make it more efficient and just look at current things that are out there in surrounding communities, benchmarking with them. And our goal is to increase, by doing so, the goal is to really increase the recycling rate. We've experienced a $2 per ton increase this year. There's been some local talk within the next 2 or 3 years that could go up to $90 a ton for trash. We're at 72 right now. We could be in the 90s in a couple of years. And the recycling market is all but tanked, and we're actually paying for recycling now to get rid of it. And that went up a few bucks too. So we're trying to have the residents, again, understand that instead of $70 or $72 a ton of trash, we can, put in a recycling bin and do more efforts and pay $12 instead of $72, and eventually it's going to go to 90-something in a few years. So that's going to have a pronounced impact on the budget for this. So again, that ordinance takes that all into effect, and we're starting to work with that now. And we also looked at assessing the transfer station operating costs and some revenue opportunities. We've looked at it in total cost to operate in comparison to others. Novak wanted a 20% cost recovery. It's going to be tough to do, but again, it's going to have some tough decisions from you folks sitting at at the table over there to decide how that's going to handle, and it's not easy. I know you're laughing, Councilor Denny, but it's true. Yeah, you're smiling, I know, because there's some tough decisions coming down on how it's going to happen. And we're also looking at other potential opportunities for increased revenue, and the bulky went up to 150, but right now, we're just about covering costs, if not a little still under at that rate. So, but we did address that with the ordinance review. So again, when all those things come together, we'll be talking about it in subcommittee, what we're said, we're almost there. And now WPC. WPC is probably the most impact to the budget, just by the sheer amount of people that you really want to add to it. So after many talks with the superintendent, the main goal was to we have a $33 million facility that we're doing now. We're going to be looking to do upgrades and pump stations. We're trying to redo sewer mains that are collapsing and some really ancient things that are in the streets. We're trying to just keep on top of it. So the goal is to have basically almost like 3 divisions within WPC, and that would be one staff for plant operations, another one doing equipments and pumps, and another one doing the collection system. Again, with a $33 million upgrade, if that's great, but if we don't have staff to be able to maintain it, all that money, it's all just gonna go out the window. We have warranties, we have other scheduled maintenance that we have to do on that for this facilities. Otherwise than that, we're just throwing $33 million away soon, and it doesn't take long. Again, knowing how much stuff that we process and what those equipment goes through, we want to be able to maintain it. So there's 7 new positions. There's 1 lead, 4 attendant 2s, 1 attendant 1, and we're looking for a part-time landscaper to go mow the grass at all the pump stations. And at WPC, it doesn't sound like much, but when you're taking skilled laborers and putting them behind that respond just to WPC and have them, and it's just really not efficient. Now, there's been talk of, again, buildings and grounds to take that on. There's just too much. There's just so much that buildings and grounds is already behind on. We just can't do it. So we're looking at hiring just a part-time landscaper just to take care of that. Why do we need the number of positions? Again, you properly maintain that $33 million upgraded plant, sufficient staffing, again, for the pump stations and collection systems. So we're going to have a crew just for maintaining those, which require constant maintenance. And we actually with that, we can actually start doing preventative maintenance, which is doesn't really happen too often. It's it's reactive right now. Again, with staffing and other challenges, it's basically a reactive thing. And also provide staffing needed for EPA and deep compliance, which is the tough one. We are mandated. We have to do certain things, and with our other divisions, again, buildings and grounds and highways, there's certain things we don't need to do. We just provide that service. Here, we're mandated, and some of that is we need to do it, and there's just no way out of it. So what does this do to the rates? We're looking at about, again, if all these positions were filled and we did all this all at one time, the rates are looking at about $38.81 per account per year for the whole year, for all 15,483 accounts. So that would be the cost. That would be the impact of WPC per account. But that's a huge impact. The labor cost alone is $596,000, about $597,000 for that. So, summing up, we've made considerable progress on a lot of the no-cost, low-cost recommendations. Now, the NOVAC recommendations cost to implement was $56,560. That's what they figured on with loaded rates. So it includes fringe benefits, includes Medicaid, and all that kind of stuff. It's not just salary; it's loaded. So it's $56,560. And after going through several subcommittee meetings and a lot of hours with, again, Deputy Mayor Suzak and Councilor Bosco and Councilor Denny, as the manager says, I don't know how many hours we spent, but it's been significant and whatever. We were able to get it down to implement the entirety of the plan to $282,023, and that's inclusive of WPC. So by reworking those things and really sitting with staff and really going through it, we've really cut down a lot on that. So DPW, we are asking, for approval tonight from council on a few of these things, and some of them are simple, again, like the canceling the second shift on fleet. And these are the things that we would like you to take action on, or if you have any questions on. We'd like to get this thing going. We're prepared. We're on board. We're ready to go with a lot of these things. DPW, the WPC staff changes, that's, significant, but the other ones, I think we can really get through them, and we can open up for debate and questions. But again, we've put a lot of work and energy into this with everybody, with council and with staff, manager, and everyone else. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anything else before we open? No? Any questions? Anyone from the DPW subcommittee? Councilor Bosco?
Thank you. Good presentation. I've sort of been dozing off and hearing it so many times now. We've been over this, and over this. We just beat this thing to death. And yeah, everything here is pretty much what we need to run the town properly. I'm still not happy, but there was a lot of give and take, and I mean, we just had arguments about electricians. We got things straightened out. We really did work very hard. I just hope that we can find it in our budget next year for this part of it, because it's really necessary. But I would say I think we should move it along, and it's been well vetted.
Councilor Denny?
Yeah, I think that the recommendation that he had tonight, especially getting off this second shift business, I think if we're going to do that business, I think we should move on it right away, because it's a great idea, and it helps. It's a cost saver, basically, and more wrench time. And like Joey said, I didn't have to look at this tonight. I was flipping through it again, but to refresh myself. But I mean, I heard it a 1,000 times, and we've been over and over and over. And I think, and we all argued about it, but it did a good job, Donald. Thank you.
Councilor Sferrazza?
Just one question. The very first slide, you were talking about that IT piece, the dude, whatever you called it. That 23,000, is that a maintenance, annual repeating maintenance, or a one-time licensing fee?
Subscription, annual subscription.
So every year, and is that going to go up every year?
It may, yes.
Okay.
Second call? Deputy Mayor Suzak?
Actually, everybody's done this has been beaucoup work. I know I did get a call during the week, and, somebody asked, about, we do the trash where we do our yard waste on Fridays. And I know the recommendation in the Novak was to go to Monday. And I'm not in favor of that, because snowstorms is really why we have it. It's not because, in the summer, we want to put our yard waste out on Friday. It's because we need that Friday to allow our people to catch up if we have, storms and things like that. So you don't see this in your presentation, and it was something that we weren't in favor of when we looked at it. But I guess for me, and to take off on what Ed started, could we get a list of what can we do today to make this better, and what has to wait till budget?
And thank you, that's a good segue. What I was going to suggest is, I think that we should implement the recommendations. The system has worked well, from Novak to the subcommittees to the work coming to the council. And again, like anything else, nothing's irrevocable. We try it, we do those things that we can, we see how it works for a period of time, and we can always go back and change it if we think we need to adjust it. Those items that we can do immediately, we will shake out, and we'll come back. Those things that can be done by resolution, we'll work with John if any have current impacts, such as purchasing the IT and the dude solutions. Those things, we'll break it out. The others, they are proposing in their budget, and those things hopefully we can implement, providing we're able to have a decent ability this year in the budget to adjust in areas and implement those things. So that's what I would suggest. We'll talk to them. You are now completely familiar. We'll break it down as to how we implement it, and then those things that we can't, that are the bigger staffing and budgetary items, we'll address during the budget.
Councilor Crisati?
Yeah, I want to thank you for your time and effort and everybody else that was on this committee to get to this with the recommendations here. And there's one thing that I do want to recognize is that, something that we talked about last year is, the total you got a lot of reduction in overtime. And I think you did a real nice job with that, with the addition of new hires that you're recommending. I think that's a key point that you're going to be, you're hiring more people, but in the long run, I think you're going to be saving money. So it's a good, I'm very pleased with all your recommendations.
Counselor Bosco.
Through the mayor, town manager, with this recommendation, with closing the shop and the new truck, do we have to do a resolution to do the purchase of, we're gonna do a resolution for that, and that's something that we really need to make sure that we get that done sooner than later, because, again, you try to tie a truck up, and if something, you can't get a part for it, you're not picking up trash. We have just enough vehicles now to do it, which will incur overtime if the trash has to get picked up, so.
We wanted
I'd
to
like
make sure there was a consensus of the council. I sense that it's pretty unanimous, and now we will work immediately on preparing those documents and the resolutions and whatever is necessary to implement in the stages we discussed. We'll come back to you on every one of them, and then the others will be left for the budget. But now at least you have a working understanding when we get to budget. Again, we've done a lot of hard work over the last few months of a lot of items that impact the budget. So during the budget, it won't have to be done late at night with little information and on little sleep. And this is one of them. When we talk about water pollution control in the budget, you're going to have an understanding of what we're talking about. And also, we'll probably do it, as we've said, at a scheduled water pollution control meeting, and we can talk about that a little more. And again, I'll just say, part of this to Councilor Sferrazzi is on the IT. It always is a little frustrating on the continuing costs of software, and it's more than a lot of the hardware, but it's something that's just part of doing it. But one thing we did do with this, Greg had found this solutions, and then part of our process to bring everything under IT, which is what we're doing this year from police and with phones and all other areas. It's going to be under IT so that he can scrutinize. He worked closely with them. They had concerns to make sure. I mean, IT has certain understanding, and you'd seen that at the police department, but those on the ground in the department have a better understanding of what they really need. So working together now collaboratively, I think we've struck a good balance that we're getting the most bang for our buck. It's going to be under IT, and then that way it's all in one place to look. So from budget to budget, things don't get cut that we don't really know about. IT will oversee it. They'll make sure that software is updated and we get the best prices, especially in the cellular area. I mean, that's such a constantly changing landscape that they're always looking for the best deal, and it's best we get more for our money when we do it as a town than as individual departments.
Now, this garbage truck will have to be done under a bid waiver, correct?
It depends on the timing. Usually the bid waivers, we have to show it's against the best interest of the town to not go to bid. So we'll look at that. They'll make a recommendation.
Yeah,
and
well,
then
because we're buying a used one, when you find it, you have to
that's it. You have to
purchase
move.
it.
It's usually behooves us to do it more quickly. So if they find one, that's probably the way it would go. If we have more time, we could go out and do the bid, but I'll defer to them now that they know the direction of the council is that we want it.
Anyone else have any questions? Again, I just want to thank Councilor Denny, Councilor Bosco, Deputy Mayor Suzak, along with your staff. I know you guys put some marathon meetings in getting this together. Simply well done. Simply well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So we have 10 minutes before the regular meeting. The special meeting is, do I have a motion adjourned? Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Muller. All those in favor? Wait 10 minutes to the regular meeting. Tuesday, February 19th. Counselor Muller, prayer, please.
Lord, give us the strength to learn and love our neighbors more deeply, to create peaceful and just communities. Inspire us to use our creative energies to build the support systems we need to overcome the obstacles of intolerance and indifference. Help us not to lose faith in other people, to open our eyes and see the good in all people. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller. Here. Counselor Sferrazza.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Here.
Counselor Ungary.
Here.
Counselor Bosco.
Here.
Counselor Sakala.
Here.
Counselor Crisati.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Denny.
Here.
Counselor Keiner. Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
There's 10 members present, 1 is absent.
Item number 4, fire evacuation announcement. In case of a fire, we have the doors in the back. Please orderly go out the left or the right, or we have doors to our left, your right. Please go out the doors, out the first door down the stairs, and out the doors to the parking lot in case of a fire. Item number 5, minutes preceding meeting. Special meeting, February 4, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Counselor Denny. Seconded by Counselor Muller. Any edits, deletions? Hearing none, by show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Abstentions? 9 in favor, 1 abstention. Do I have a motion to approve regular meeting February 4th, 2018? By Counselor Muller, seconded by Counselor Crisati. Any additions or deletions? Hearing none, by show of hands, all those in favor? By show of hands? Opposed? Abstentions? Abstention. 9 in favor, 1 abstention. Item number 6, special guests, we have none. None. Item number 7, we move on to public communications. First round will be 5 minutes, and the preceding rounds will be 3 minutes. We have an hour, so it is 7:04. Would anyone like to speak for the council? Bob?
Everybody can hear me?
Is it on?
Well, I guess so. Maybe we'll get closer. You know, it's very interesting, Bob T. Katz, Woodgate Circle. It was very interesting, the last meeting, that they talked about rubbish, go more recycling. Well, that's what West Hartford's done. They took away everybody's 96-gallon rubbish barrels and substituted for a 46 or 45-gallon barrel, because their analysis showed in that rubbish barrel, half the items in that rubbish barrel were recyclable. So we should move in that direction. That's the way to save money, and to save a lot of money. But I would hope you'd act on that today. You know, all we heard that we got a lot of buildings, excess buildings, and and the answer is, what's happening on this project, selling these buildings? Well, the only answer I ever got is, says, we're working on it. You know, that's a Stalingrad defense. That's what Eisenhower kept asking Stalin when he's going to break out of Stalingrad. He says, I'm working on it. He says, well, we'll let you get them to Berlin first. Well, I'm working on it. We'll see what we can do. The other thing is, you keep beating these seniors for this on EMS bills. My wife had a procedure done at Johnson Memorial, like $1,297. Medicare paid $1,260 or something. She's getting a bill from collections for $37 or whatever it is. You know, they got paid over $1,200, and they're constantly beating everybody up for extra money. Why don't you concentrate on the uncollectible taxes in Enfield? If you did that when this council took seat in November, you wouldn't have had to raise the mill rate last time. Collect these taxes. In fact, if you should publish it, who's not paying their taxes, because Enfield used to do that, and they stopped it for some reason. Maybe I'll have to FOI it from the town manager so I can publish the people that aren't paying taxes. You know, years ago, back in the 80s, 90s, when you got appointed to a position on like planning and zoning, So I heard some people say at a Republican town committee meeting that, well, I don't have any qualifications to be on the planning and zoning. No, you go on it, you'll learn from your fellow planning and zoning. So things have changed. What kind of qualifications now for all these boards and commissions? Are you going to set up a committee to develop people's qualifications? They need to sit on these committees? Because actually, if you do that, nobody's qualified unless you sat on those committees. I passed out the Ansonia debacle, how they refused to give the school board last year the extra money they got from the state, which they didn't get the year before. Ansonia gave them the money like you did. Well, Ansonia's school system says, we don't have enough money. We can't finish the school year. We're $600,000 short. Well, as it turns out, during the summer, the school board paved their parking lot at the Board of Education office for $600,000. I don't know what kind of paving that was. So the mayor is adamant. He says, the school board wants like $3.5 million. And they asked him, the school board going to get their money? He says, fat chance. He says, they put us through this. They're not getting a dime more than they got last year. Now, the other thing, the war is over in Long Meadow. They threw the 4 people that voted against the superintendent's extending his contract. The townspeople were in an uproar at the public meeting. They put in a recall change in their charter. It got about a 73% vote for the change. And the school board members got so much heat from the community, people going by their houses, blowing the horns and everything else, and on Facebook, they resigned. They hired a former superintendent of Windsor Locks who works in the school system for the 4th member so they can have a quorum. Right away, they renewed the superintendent's contract, and it was a major party. Everybody cheered in Long Meadow. So, we got rules of order.
30 seconds, go ahead, sorry.
How much?
30 seconds, go ahead.
We got rules of order. I mean, last meeting, everybody gets a chance to speak. You have the floor, Liz, and it's unfortunate that we have Mike Ludwig's rules of order. He can butt in and talk and argue with you when you have the floor. And he has no right to do that. And anybody who has the floor has a right to speak. When they're done, they're done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Judy.
Judy Kilty, 83 Abbey Road. I have a lot on my mind, Mike, so I might need a half hour. Is that cool?
Should give you a half hour.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, Plan B. I've spoken with John Kissel's office a couple times and with Carol Hall. They're unsure what the bonding for JFK stands, and they may not know for a while, even after the governor's speech tomorrow. Now, Tom seems to feel that it is okay. It's kind of upsetting, and I know that you guys don't have the answer, but I just hope to hell that you have a Plan B. And as far as the over $100 million needed to fix our buildings and schools, we can kiss that goodbye because there's not going to be any bonding for that. Apparently waiting over 10 years to address the repairs needed while touting no tax increase again was not the best plan. Those rental boilers at JFK are in their 2nd year. That's got to be quite costly. We deserve some answers to know what your Plan B is. And something else. At our last council meeting, I expressed pride in Governor Lamont for working with Webster Bank to help people affected by the government shutdown. Our mayor expressed how unhappy he was that those loans were given. He even followed it up with a letter to the JI complaining about the unfairness of these loans because everyone else in town and state didn't get one. He was worried that we, the people of Enfield and Connecticut, would get stuck paying for these loans. He complained about this unfunded mandate, and my question is, do you have any information at all that Enfield has suffered financially because of this? I doubt it. I believe your letter came across as extremely petty, and my hope is that even though the paper recognized you as the mayor of Enfield, I hope people reading this do not equate those thoughts and feelings with the people of Enfield, but rather as a single resident of our town. And I really need to add that your recent and continued outbursts and loud lecturing While whether they be directed at the audience members or the council members is something you need to get a hand on, because it's not a good representation for our town.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Tom?
Good evening, Tom Serrard, 32 D'Annunzio Avenue. Couple of issues. For one, I think that it is appropriate for the town council to make a statement about tolls and to support a comment that tolls would adversely affect the town of Enfield. I own a business in Enfield. It's on Route 5. Combined between my home and my business, I pay approximately $20,000 a year in just property taxes, not counting my personal vehicles or any of the other stuff. And every time I turn around, someone in government is asking me to cough up more money to cover for their incompetence. Tolls are a tax. As a man who used to own heavy equipment and heavy trucks, I will tell you that the Transportation Fund is funded by some of the highest fuel taxes in the country. It is also funded by fees and registrations and licensing that all these companies have to pay. And that money was pilfered and used for other things. That's why our roads are in bad shape. Period. If you've ever seen an accident that knocks out any part of 91 close to Enfield, Route 5 turns into a parking lot. If you put tolls here, people will seek to avoid them. They will come through Thompsonville to use the I-90 bridge to get to Massachusetts that way. Thompsonville can't handle that kind of traffic. Route 5 can't handle that kind of traffic. If you look at the design of Route 5 and where my business is located, you will not be able to get into my parking lot unless you happen to be on the right side of the street. Anyone who supports these does not support Enfield. Most of the people that live in Enfield commute to work. If you support the tolls, you are supporting an additional tax on those that commute to work, which would be about 40% of your population. So when you say you support tolls, or you say that the council should not be involved in making that kind of a determination or making a statement, you are in fact saying you're in favor of raising taxes on people who are already taxed enough. Period. Now, as far as decorum, as you know, I used to be an elected person. Not elected anymore. And I'm not a townie, wasn't born here. But I know a lot about Enfield's history. A lot more than most of the townies do. I know why the schools are decrepit. It wasn't just for 10 years. It was decades of not being fixed. When the buildings were turned over to the town, they were turned over to the town because the school board used to allocate money for repairs and then not do them. This idea that it was suddenly this thing that happened over 10 years is not true and needs to stop being said because it's not true. Decorum. I stopped running for office because of the negativity that has infected our politics in town. We used to be able to have conversations, and even though we disagreed with each other, it was never about personalities. It's become about personalities. Avoiding personalities is not just saying someone's name. It's avoiding their position. It's bringing in personal facts that have no bearing on the topic being discussed. When you come to a meeting, you're supposed to be discussing the issues that are on the agenda. But because we tried to be more transparent, we tried to open communications, we allowed those to expand. But that's been abused. Now you can come in front of the microphone and tear down any citizen, regardless if they're elected or not. That's not right. You can do it on Facebook all day long, great. Don't do it here. It's wrong. and we're all better than that. As far as negativity goes, I know what it's like to be an agent of change. When I became an agent of change, let me tell you about some of the negative things that happened to me personally.
20 seconds.
My cars were vandalized. My home was called in the middle of the night, repeatedly. Between human urine poured into my gas tank, crazy glue in my door locks, I can't count how many times they let the air out of all 4 of my tires, to the point where I had to bring a compressor with me. Not once did I complain. That's where the negativity comes from.
Thank you. Mike?
Good evening. Good evening. Mike Danu, 244 Pearl Street. I'd just like to thank the council for putting on the agenda the resolution opposing tolls. As someone in the middle class, I just can't afford another tax, and that's what I think the tolls are. So thank you again for bringing it up tonight, and I respectfully ask that you all consider voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
John Ungary, 271 Abbey Road. And as a resident of Connecticut, it is becoming increasingly frustrating that the Connecticut state government keeps going back to the taxpayer well to continually bail them out of the state's financial mess, a mess that has resulted from their mismanagement. It is very easy and perhaps even tempting for our elected officials to say, I'm not responsible for this mess, or I inherited it. Unfortunately, many of our legislators are quite skilled at pointing their fingers everywhere elsewhere. Well, regardless, the mess remains, and the implementation of tolls in Connecticut only addresses a symptom of a much larger Connecticut fiscal problem. First and foremost, our legislators must recognize that it's not their money. It's ours, the taxpayers, both residents and businesses, hard-earned money. Instead of continually following the past precedent of shoving your hand deeper into the taxpayer's pocket, why not try a different and more prudent approach, like not spending more money than you take in, or controlling it, or even cutting your costs as a more desirable alternative to increasing taxes? It's way too easy to spend someone else's money. I do not support tolls in Connecticut, as it again places a further undue burden on the Connecticut taxpayer. The irony is that tolls in Connecticut will only serve to further exasperate the financial problems facing this state. Well, how is that? Well, one, by making Connecticut an even less desirable place to live, again forcing many residents to leave the state for greener pastures. Two, with less residents in the state, an even greater tax burden will fall on those who remain. And three, by creating an adverse business climate. This will prevent new businesses from locating in Connecticut and inhibiting further investment of those businesses already located in Connecticut. The time is now. I challenge our elected officials at all levels to step up to the plate. Be brave. Be extraordinary. Do the heavy lifting that is necessary to fix the root causes of our fiscal crisis and not just Band-Aid the symptoms. The time is now to protect the taxpayers of our great state of Connecticut. Take up the challenge and begin by saying no to tolls. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Jack?
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about a posting that I saw online about insurance costs versus cash payments to doctors and medical facilities. And one of the things that I wanted to have people aware of is that the insurance companies, whatever it is that they charge, isn't necessarily what they get paid, because Medicare cuts it by a lot, 60% at least. And so when somebody goes in and wants to pay cash and they get a discount because it's cash, how is that any different than the discount they get because they're 65 and on Medicare? There isn't any difference. But yet you see a posting by a senator saying that he's got a problem with that it's not fair that they charge less. Well, the charge is not what they actually get. I talked to doctors who said, in fact, Dr. Figueroa, who has since passed away, and he said at the time that when he was considering retiring, he wasn't going to retire, but he says, see those five people out in the front office? He says, I'm one person, and I'm supporting those 5 people that I need for the billing for all of the different insurances that are out there, because they're all experts in their own field. So I just wanted to make everybody very aware that I have procedures done where it comes up $1,500 and they actually get $250. So that's nonsense as far as that goes. Anyway, school maintenance, I'd like to agree with the fact that I've been saying that for ages now with the school maintenance. It was in the budgets for years and years and years. And because it's whatever they call their budgets, they don't have to pay or apply the money where it's allocated, then they just don't do it. So all that maintenance that was in arrears, look who to blame. And I'm pretty worried about, I'd like to know if there are any successes in the TIFs. Has anybody said that there's some success? I'm not talking about something in process. I'm talking about something that's been in there and it's actually resulted in something better, because I don't like knee-jerk reactions, like the one we had on PCBs at JFK. That's nonsense. And that brings me to another thing. In the newspaper, Lamont's budget, and I'm sure Judy was talking about this too before, having some kind of a plan B. It says we're on a debt diet, and I'm sure you must have seen this. It says Lamont wants to put Connecticut on a debt diet, meaning lawmakers hungry for state bond money to fund projects in their districts have to start looking elsewhere. Lamont said that the state has had a problem with compulsive eating. Borrowing, he wants to reduce annual bond authorizations to less than $1 billion, a reduction of $600 million or 39%. Some conservative Republicans who, for years, have been saying that the state is borrowing money it can't afford to pay back, hailed the move. But cities and towns are worried it will mean less money for school construction and other local projects. The government sets the agenda for the state bond commissions and can decide when and if the group meets to vote on these projects. Now, when I talked to the Office of the Secretary of State, I told the Office of the Secretary of State that should look into why they're just willy-nilly approving these requests for bonding schools that we don't need. We've got many more empty seats, and we keep building these schools. And what it's doing is, and people don't realize it, I guess, they want to do what's right for the kids in the community. But the problem is that it's leading to regionalization. It's leading to regionalization, and we'll wind up building all these schools and have all these extra seats, and then we'll start busing in the people. So I know you've heard that before, but I had to get it off my chest. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Chris?
Oh, sorry.
Good evening, Chris Rutledge, 7 Victory Street. 2 items to talk about. One involves a traffic pattern here in Enfield. I think it was like maybe 3 or so years ago, the traffic pattern at where South Road intersects with Rafi and Beach was redirected because the left lane was a straight and a left turn only, and then the right lane was right turn only. I think that was a great idea because it helped alleviate a lot of traffic. I mean, who hasn't been stuck behind that person wanting to make a left and you can't veer around in the right lane? However, there's another area in town that has the same problem. It's where Hazard Avenue intersects with North and South Maple. Like, for example, if you're coming from the Skidco area and you want to make a left to go to Collins Creamery during the summer, invariably you're stuck, there's that one person that wants to make a left and then there's like 3 or 4 cars behind them that just get stuck in that lane and they can't veer around in the right lane. So I don't know if that's maybe something that could be looked at to do the same thing that was done on South Road. That might be a interesting idea. And second of all, I also want to talk about tolls a little bit. You guys have a resolution on your agenda for this evening. Albeit it has been a bit more of a symbolic statement, but I think it's an important statement to make. There's something that I hope most people in this state can agree with, and that Connecticut's in a bit of a financial mess. Obviously we're run deficits on a yearly basis. We have all sorts of unfunded liabilities. Where we seem to differ, though, there's 2 different schools of thought as to how that problem should be remedied. There's the one school of thought which seems to be being pushed very hard right now in Hartford, which is that we have a revenue problem, and so let's just try and find new ways of raising revenue. There's the other school of thought that we have a spending problem. Looking at the revenue side, if you agree that there is a revenue problem, then perhaps putting in things like higher taxes or tolls will work, but unfortunately that is just a short-term solution. There's economic models and data that show that eventually when you hit a certain tax level, tax increases and fee increases actually become counterproductive and actually start resulting in less and less revenue, which we've started to see in Connecticut as partially due to the exodus of our citizens. Now, if you look at it from the other side as a spending problem, you start to realize that before we should implement any new taxes and fees, we need to get our spending under control. We have billions of dollars in unfunded pension liabilities and healthcare liabilities. We have exorbitant salaries at UConn. Even to, I think I saw a report once that even to repair our roads in Connecticut is about twice as much as it is anywhere else in the country. I could see implementing tolls only if you address the spending problems first, just like any household would if they're doing their budget. Who hasn't come up in a time when, oh my God, I have this unexpected expense, what am I gonna do? Do you go out and look for a new job? No. You try and find ways to cut your expenses so that you can pay for this unexpected expense. Connecticut needs to do the same thing. That right there is why tolls are a bad idea. It looks at it as a revenue problem when it's actually a spending problem. And until Connecticut can get its spending under control, we should not be looking at those additional sources of revenue. So I wholeheartedly support and hope you guys vote in favor of that resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa. How you doing?
Melissa Everett, 2 Post Road, bringing a little diversity into the conversation. I'm a member of the middle class. You gotta get up in the microphone. Oh, like this? Sound check?
Is the light on?
The light is not, oh. Oh, right, thank you. I'm another member of the middle class. I'm nearing retirement and I don't have a ton of money. And when I drive on business to New York, I pay tolls. It does not really dent my budget that much. And when I drive to Massachusetts on business, it really does not dent my budget that much. And I don't begrudge paying them. And I don't begrudge investing in value for public goods like roads. And I think that a number of speakers on this topic have really wisely said, yes, we have to get spending under control, and have been wise in saying we need to address the root causes of our state deficit. That doesn't mean we can't also develop revenue sources that just lighten the squeeze. So I'm an example of a voter who would be very unhappy to see that resolution passed and to see it go on record that the town as a community opposes tolls. This is an example for me, of where, everybody who has made the case that tolls are a bad thing, this is state policy, they should be communicating to their state reps on a vote at the state level. What you're considering later tonight is a statement that claims that the entire town is unified at a point. And the entire town isn't. We're actually having a productive debate. So I would urge you not to vote for that resolution, to table it. And I would urge you also, when the idea comes forward to endorse a principle on behalf of the town, there are ways to actually do rigorous surveying. There are ways to invite full community comment, to know that you are speaking for the town before doing so. A couple of comments before me have been about political process and civility and respect. And we've had some painful conversations in the community recently around Facebook postings with ethnic overtones that I won't go into, but you know what I'm talking about. And I think it's time to really raise the bar of everything we're doing sort of procedurally, and not casually pass resolutions on behalf of the town that really don't speak for the entire town. Before I babble, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Mary Ann?
Mary Ann Turner, 7 Meadow Road. I'm pro-resolution. The only way we're going to have our legislators listen to us is to push them a little bit. So if you really want to talk about tolls tomorrow, or tonight, and tomorrow, and for the next 30 days, go to Hartford tomorrow and talk to them about it. But I am definitely against tolls, and maybe you don't pay a lot when you go to New York or when you go to Boston because you don't go there that often. But when they're right out your back door, you're going to be on 91 a lot, and it is going to be extremely expensive every month. And for folks that are going to be on a fixed income, they're going to learn real quick how much $400 or $500 could be to them. But the real reason I'm here was something really kind of interesting. This weekend's paper, there was an article about recycling. And I thought, wow, this is, Mayor Mike is always talking about come up with new ideas. Let's just toss them out there. Now, I'm not saying this is anything Enfield's going to be able to do right away, but it's something to noodle on. And what they were talking about was zero waste, the power of real recycling. So as I'm reading through this thing, it's about San Francisco, which you kind of expected. They're a little more, do stuff like this. But today, there was an article in the Connecticut News Junkie about a very local company called Blue Earth Compost. And I have to tell you, it was very exciting to read about. And I'm going to share it with through the town manager and to the mayor and folks. But what it talks about is the recycling of food scraps. And I never really thought about how much you throw away and what it costs. And I know that, Donna, you don't need any more things to do on your facilities committee at the moment. But what it really talked about is how this local company of a very small group of people started this recycling company, and they take the food scraps, and their territory is not that you could see it. Enfield isn't in it, but I would like to encourage them to get here. And they actually charge people to come pick up your food scraps. They have a barrel that you can put out, and then they take it and they bring it back to you as compost. And I just thought it was a really kind of a cool idea for all of us who have gardens, and I have really big ones. So I just thought it might be something to put in our bailiwick for us to noodle on. I'm not saying it's something we can do right away, but it just seemed really encouraging to see that an article on Sunday of what's happening in San Francisco is happening right here in our own backyard, right in Hartford. So I'll share the information. Maybe we could actually put it to clean energy. I'm not sure if it falls into their thing, but it might be a perfect spot. So really or truly, new idea, Mayor Mike, new idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Sir.
Joe Albert, 229 Columbia Road, Enfield. So first of all, tonight, I definitely against tolls. That's going to be a tax. If you people don't think that truck drivers coming in delivering milk, bread, you think they're going to do that for free? No, they're going to add that to our bill. So in turn, we're going to pay for tolls, grocery tax, prescription tax. Every tax that's out there is going to continually go up. Our pay is not going up. Our town taxes are going up. Our state taxes are going up. The only way the state is going to collect tolls is for people moving out because they can't afford to live in this state. And for town council members who said that tolls aren't going to come here, I think you're wrong because the governor, it came out of his mouth, it's going to happen, and you're going to shut this town down because nobody's going to want to take 91 and go up the street, get off at 49. They're going to pay 50 cents there. So now we're going to put more traffic on a residential area, which then somebody's going to get hit, more traffic. I don't think we thought about that. We have school districts all along the main roads. More truck traffic, they're going to go through it. I know for the company that I work for, my drivers are going to cut through it. You can't do business that way. You want to keep business in the state? Vote no for this tolls. And tonight, vote yes for the resolution that we do not want tolls. And I think for people who travel, I travel New Hampshire, I travel to Vermont, I travel to New York. Guess what? All that comes down to consumer. I don't like paying taxes. I don't like paying tolls. But guess what? It's going to happen. Our fuel tax, guess what? That's going to go up also. You're taxing people to death in this town. We need to start cutting programs that are unnecessary. All right, we need to think about consolidating schools because obviously people are going to move out if they can't afford the taxes in this town. So now you're going to have less kids in town. We need to start thinking about that and start selling some of these buildings that are vacant. Put them up. Well, once again, who's going to move to the state if we're going to get taxed to death? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Murray.
Marie Pisner, 25 Roy Street. I agree with those that spoke before me tonight about no tolls. And I support and hope that our council agrees and that we pass a resolution as a town to show the state that Enfield does not want them. But really tonight I am here to tell you why I am proud to live in Enfield and why I am proud that I raised my daughters here. We have a brand new high school in Enfield, and we soon will have a new middle school. We have 6 grammar schools that are all staffed with dedicated and caring teachers. Our schools are furnished with modern technology and help to prepare our students for a bright future. We offer music, theater, arts, sports, and we encourage each student to follow their passion. We have a vibrant community college right here in Enfield. They not only offer college courses, but they offer welding, manufacturing, massage, health studies, and the list goes on. We have an adult education that offers both fun classes and knowledge. Enfield has an outpatient surgical center, as well as a cancer center. This allows our residents to have medical treatments close to home instead of traveling to Hartford and Springfield. We have multiple social service programs. We offer before school, after school classes, schooling for parents, for grandparents, and it's all on a sliding scale so that we ensure that every resident receives the services they need at a price they can afford. Our Enfield housing offers a wide variety of elderly housing, low income, and disabled housing. We have a senior bus and a magic carpet, again, offering transportation at affordable prices. We have a soup kitchen that serves meals 7 days a week, a food pantry, and a warming center for the winter months, assisting our residents in need. Our fire, police, and first responders are second to none in emergencies, and we saw that last week at our last meeting. Our senior center offers everything imaginable to our Enfield seniors, and even include out-of-town seniors, and I know many that come. We may not have a vibrant mall anymore, but we do have a great variety of stores here that offers everything we need. We have 4 grocery stores, and for a woman who loves to cook, I love that. And that doesn't even include Coronas. We have weekly rubbish pickup, recycling pickup, leaf pickup in the fall, and snow plowing in the winter. We have a 4th of July festival each year that is considered one of the best in the States, and our Mount Carmel for an Italian festival can't be beat. There are civic and private groups that provide our family fun days like Jack-o'-lantern festival and an Easter egg hunt. But the best part about living in this town, and I have lived here my entire life, is the residents themselves. Our town comes together when our neighbors need help. Whether it's a house fire, a child or parent that's been diagnosed with a serious illness, or someone that's just down on their luck, I have seen this town come together. My list can go on, but my point is this. Enfield is a great town to live in. Is it perfect? No. But there is no town that is perfect. I am hoping the people here tonight sitting in the audience and those watching at home are thinking a positive thought right now about Enfield. Because I am asking each of you to come forward at the next meeting and tell that positive thought to the council. And if you're too shy to come up here and talk, or you just can't get here, then pick up the phone or email a council person. But please, share your positive thoughts. By changing our focus from what could have been to what could be, we together can move Enfield forward to what we all want. And that is a wonderful, vibrant town to live in and raise our families in. And I have every confidence in the elected officials in this town and sitting before me tonight that that is all you want to. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your dedication.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Walter?
Walter Cruzel, 21 Charlie Road. Vote yes on your, yes for no tolls in Enfield. But let me change gears because our board meeting was snowed out last week. Buzz Robotics is having a pasta supper next Wednesday, February 27th, from 5 to 8 over at St. Bernard's Parish Hall. $10 a plate. Come out and support them. Today's their last day of building their robot, so good luck to them on their competitions coming up. So just wanted to get that out there. So next Wednesday, February 27th, 5 to 8 o'clock at St. Bernard's Parish Hall. $10 a plate. Come out and support the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Ray?
Good evening. Ray Peabody, 370 Washington Road, our fair town. First of all, I want to thank you guys for what you do. I know it's hard. I know you put in a lot of hours, but I appreciate it. Other folks may not, but I want you to know I do, and I would support each and every one of you. I do feel, though, all 11 of you do represent 45,000 folks in town. Not just one group or the other, but all of us combined. And in that 45,000 people, there's a demographic that goes up and down 91 every day. I'm one of them. I don't know how many of you guys go up every day, twice a day. So I'm presuming that the toll will go both ways. What I would like you to do, and my request is quite simple. You're my voice. You're my voice as a group collectively to our legislature, our governor. And I would appreciate it if you would consider putting a letter together, not supporting the tolls, asking them to consider something else. It's going to be, like I said, it's a group of people that go up and down the road every day that are going to be funding this. It's not just about out-of-state people, but it's about our town residents. And I'm looking for you to support our town residents. I do understand, and I agree with Melissa, there needs to be a little bit more data given to us. I make decisions based on data, not based on emotions, as some of you all know. I would take the next period of time, find out how many of our residents are for and against. I would also like to find out what the cost is for these tolls. How many tolls are going to be up and down I-91? And one point I want to make is, if you go from exit 1 in New Haven all the way up to the end of Vermont, there's not a single toll on I-91. Massachusetts has one toll road, I-90. That money has always been sequestered. We took away our DOT funding back in the 80s, I believe it was, maybe a little earlier. There was an issue with DOT funding, so the legislature said, hey, you got a lot of money, we're going to take it in, and we're going to put it in to balance our budget. I understand why, but not necessarily the best move. Contrary in the state to the north, there was an effort to take the money from the Mass Pike and three other bridges and put that in the general fund. The voters said no, and they didn't. It was on a referendum. So, guys, I understand the political dynamics. I understand the needs of our state to get something under control for our infrastructure. I understand all that, but right now, I don't think our demographic can truly afford whatever it may be. I go up and down every day, and I can probably afford 50 cents, a buck. You could get into $2 a day. Twice, that's $4. That's 20 bucks a week. So again, I don't know what the cost is, Mike. So I would just say right now, no. In the future, they explain themselves better, perhaps. Lastly, I want to thank you for putting forward the TIF, the blight ordinance. That takes 11 of you all working together. And Michael, thank you for your leadership on those issues. I appreciate it very much. And guys, keep working together. Keep it up. And again, thank you very much for your efforts and your actions.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Anyone else for the first time? For the second time? Judy, you had your hand up first.
Judy Kilty, 83 Abbey Road. As far as your no tolls proclamation, again, I'm asking for Plan B. What happens when a major bridge or roadway collapses and multiple lives are lost because repairs were not made because of a lack of funds? In November, at the election, there was an amendment to our state constitution which said all funds from tolls would go into a lockbox for road and bridge repair and reconstruction. And I have faith in that amendment to the Constitution. We live on Social Security and my husband's pension, so we're not rich either. But we don't want to lose our life on a bridge that was not taken care of. And they can't take care of them if they don't have funds. It's not that they didn't manage the funds well, I'm sure they did not. But hopefully with this amendment to the state constitution, there will be controls and it will be enforced that it must be used for what it's meant for. So the tolls are coming. They really are, and we just have to accept it. I don't like it, but they are coming.
Thank you. Bob.
Bob T. Katz, 815 Woodgate Circle. You know, probably before your time, none of you probably remember, maybe Ed would. The pig farmers used to pick up the food waste, and they would pick it up for free. So you could throw as much food out as you want, and the pigs were well fed. And of course, you eat the pigs after, you know, all the diseases that they have. They pick up the flies and everything else. Got to talk about tolls. You know, I looked at where they're going to put the gantries, and it's going to cost me $5,000 a year. I can't afford that. I'll have to raise my prices to everybody. The Mass Turnpike was put in before the interstate system. It was finished in 1957. In fact, that was my first run after I got my driver's license. And there's, I think, 11 gantries, and Ray said 3 bridges, but he forgot the Callahan Tunnel. And it's very minimal. The run I do 5 days a week, it's about $180 for 2 months. But I get reimbursed for that. But people remember, 91 and 95 belong to the federal government. You can't put tolls up unless you get their permission. Now, when we took the tolls down, the federal government gave us $400 million a year to not have tolls, which they're going to take away if we put tolls up. And secondly, you're not allowed on these highways to have any more rest stops or gas stations or anything else. They're banned forever. You can't put them in. And the other thing is, the state of Connecticut, the legislature says, well, we can't collect from tolls. We're going to raise your gas taxes. But if we put tolls in, are they going to reduce our gas taxes? In fact, they're saying that gas tax consumption is down. Actually, it's up considerably. Instead of putting 15,000 miles a year on an average car, it's running 18 to 20,000 miles a year because people are driving more. Even though there's a reduction in the fuel mileage, increased miles per gallon, they're still driving more and burning more gasoline. And we have the highest gas tax in the nation. I think we're comparable with Hawaii. Now, I got to agree with Tom Serrard. You know, I served on a school board. The same things happen to most people that are in opposition. Time's up?
30 seconds, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay. Another thing is I collect taxes from 5 towns, and I asked their collection rate. And one town says, we're collecting 99.9. I wonder what Enfield's average. Was it about 85, 86%, 92%? That would be an interesting number to see. But most of the towns that I collect from are collecting the 99% range. So if we're not there, we're overtaxing the people. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else like to speak before the council? Sir?
Joe Albert, 229 Columbia Road. So while I was sitting out there in the audience, I kind of Googled something here, and I did listen to the radio one time, and I heard this. This is a article from the Boston Globe by Adam Vaccaro. He's a Globe staff. May 24th, 2018. In a year and a half since Massachusetts went to all electronic tolls, 1.3 million cars have gotten a free ride because of new system couldn't read their license plate. The new system fails to read 2% of license plates, which is a much lower rate than other highway tolls. So they're capturing about 5 to 7% of license plate. You can read it online. It's there. They lost a lot of money. Their average toll was $1.47. So Massachusetts already is losing money on this. The state of Connecticut, we're going to gain money. We're not going to gain anything. The only thing we're going to gain is the poor guy working who one's got to pay a toll to go to work and come home from work. And if his car breaks down, he's called Mr. Bosco over here with his record company. Now he's got to come on the highway. He's got to pay a toll. That means it's going to come back to me. So now his rate, he's going to raise his rate because he's in business to make money. So the poor guy who's just trying to keep his car on the road is now going to have to pay tolls to get off the highway, toll to get back on the highway, because he's going to get dinged twice because the car's on the wrecker, so it's going to go off again. So he's going to get dinged for that one. And then Joe's going to charge me more because he's got to keep his wreckers running. These toll right here in Massachusetts, right next door, they lost money. So why would the state of Connecticut, in all their knowledge, wouldn't they look next door? Just because Massachusetts has it, just because New York has it. New York is broke too. The other day I heard that New York's highways, they're going to have to raise their tolls. What's going to happen? We have Route 95 that comes all the way up to Maine. Truck drivers come up. Who's going to pay for that extra toll? You and I are going to pay for it at the grocery store. It's going to trickle down to us. So if you think by putting tolls on each exit, and I think this town needs to speak to the governor about it, you're going to put a lot of people out of business. And a lot of people are going to move out of state. But the article's right here. I'm not making it up. It's in the Boston Globe. Do your own research on it and really think about it, because it just doesn't make any sense. And just for a note, I travel up to New Hampshire quite a bit. There is probably on Route 3, going up to the Manchester airport, they've probably had, in the past year or so, probably 6 accidents at one toll plaza, where one plow truck just drove into it and caused a huge accident. People died on there. And it's happening in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Sir.
Jonathan LeBlanc, 12 Hemlock Drive. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. Obviously, a lot of people came up here and talked about the tolls tonight. But I kind of want to look at it from my perspective. I'm going to be graduating college this year, and so I'm at that age where it's time to figure out what I want to do with my life, where I go, what direction I go. And a lot of my buddies are in the same position. And I look at it and I think whether it's a tolls or tax on groceries or pharmaceutical, whatever it may be, it's scaring a lot of people in my generation. And I think personally, I love Connecticut. I love this state. I was born here, and this is where I want to make a life. But I talk to other people, my friends in that, and we're in tight competition with other states, especially being a New England state. We're in tough competition where we might lose kids who are around my age, and that kind of worries me a little bit. I think if that's the case, and the big thing that's scaring them away is Connecticut's a very expensive place to live, and it's becoming more and more expensive. And I'm kind of worried if it continues down this trend, where's Connecticut's future going to go? And because there's another generation coming after this, and that will decide the future for Connecticut. And I think it's important we try to send a message to people, whether they're in college in another state or even here in our home state, that this is the place to be, and it's a good place to live and work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thought someone had a hand? Then you. Marcy, she was first, then, yeah. This will be the last two. We're up in an hour. This will be the last two.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Taylor Day. I'm at 37 Lincoln Street. Can you hear me? Okay. So I came here from the protests across the street about the tolls. So obviously I'm against them. And I think that there's no good reason to have them. You're talking about building infrastructure to support more infrastructure. That doesn't make any physical sense. Someone pointed out that New York and Massachusetts has tolls. They also have lower business tax and income tax, and they have larger populations, and they have better schools, and they have a lot of advantages that Connecticut does not have. So we cannot compete with them and then put in more tolls. We're like shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Marcy, this will be the last, then public communications will be closed.
Marcy Talicio, 23 Coolidge. I also have an idea, Mayor Mike. Diversity. How about a little diversity amongst our town leaders, firefighters, police officers, teachers, and the list goes on. To my knowledge, and I would love to be corrected, there is one person of color on a town commission in Enfield, and that person is me. There is one school administrator and maybe one teacher, I don't know. If anyone has the stats on any of this, I would love to hear it. I've been told by Board of Ed members that the qualified people of color don't exist. I've actually been told that. This is ridiculous and embarrassing to Enfield.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, council communications. Any councilors with communications? Councilor Bosco?
Yeah, I just want to go over a few things that the audience, thank you for coming, speak on the tolls. You got it right. It's going to be passed on. The problem I could just tell you with our business, first off, we pay a ton of money in fuel tax. I mean, we probably get 5 miles a gallon on some of our trucks. That equals out to a ton of money. Now they're talking about raising the fuel tax. The next thing is, we don't pay what you pay for a registration to run a truck. Our registrations are probably 10 times more than the average person. And then not only that, but we have to pay taxes, and they pay taxes from other states to us to use our roads. So when they say they're going after the trucks, the state of Connecticut's getting money from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and all the states around for fuel tax because you have to do that. The big problem's going to be is when we do, when this does pass, and I want to thank Judy because finally they admitted it, that we have tolls coming. I hope they don't come, but you know what? It's probably going to come, and I don't know if what we do, trying to be proactive, is going to change anyone's mind, but at least I'm going to feel better that I tried. This is going to cause a big headache. Now, we run 4 trucks on the road all day long. They run up and down 91 constantly, especially having one in Enfield. And, you know, I'm going to speak for the one in Enfield. We use it to just go from one side of Enfield to the other. And the problem that I'm going to have is how do I pass it on? So if I want to pass this on, every tow I'm going to need to do, we're going to have another person in the office just trying to collect tolls. It's either that or it comes out of my profits, or I just have to change my hourly rate and just charge more to try to compensate for the tolls, because there is no free ride anymore. And the points of margin in business today are very slim. And it's really tough when you have all the different things you have to pay for. So I'm with this. If this amendment comes up, I'm definitely going to support it because we can't afford it. And remember one thing: I go to the beach on the weekends. I hit the Mass Pike. That toll doesn't really hurt me, but if I have to use it every day, that's where it's going to hurt. You know, right now you go to New York. How many times a week do you go to New York? Probably 2 times. You know, it's nothing. But every time you're going to go from North Thompsonville to the southern end of Enfield, you're going to have to drive up and hit one of these tolls. And again, the way they're saying is you're not going to get a break. It's going to be tolls and gas tax. You know, if it was done correctly, and they said, you know what, we're tightening our belt, and we're going to slash the gas tax to the lowest in the state, the country, but we're going to use these tolls, maybe it wasn't so bad. My daughter, who works at Cabela's part-time, goes, Dad, I'm going to have to drive down Route 5. She makes minimum wage. Depending on where they place these tolls, she could go to 2 to 3 tolls trying to go to Cabela's to work for 3 hours a day. She's going to be paying an hour of her work just to go do tolls. She's got to give up that. So, you know, they really got to think a lot about what they're doing, because if you don't lower something else, it's not going to work. And, you know, that's it. Now, the next thing I want to thank is Marie. Marie, what you said was perfect. One problem we have, and people don't realize it, and they come and they complain about things, and they make things like they're a lot worse. They exaggerate what's happening. They keep going back to things that were done 15 years ago that we changed completely. We're no longer doing that, or we tried to fix it and we're doing something different. But what happens is when these people start talking negative and all they do is talk negative, why would anyone want to come to the town of Enfield? You would think, by listening to what people have to say, that we have terrible schools, we have terrible roads, we have a bunch of politicians that are inept, we don't do nothing but blow money, which this is all incorrect. And when Marie came and spoke, you hit it on the head. We have a beautiful community here. And we do care, and the people here do care. And if we keep talking bad about our town, no one's going to want to come. Do you think anyone's going to want to spend money at the Enfield Square if they keep thinking that we have terrible taxes, we have terrible people, we have terrible politicians, we have terrible boards and commissions? No one's going to want to come here. I mean, it's bad enough we have some commissions that do have a bad reputation. And you know what? We're changing that. It's no longer going to be, hey, you know what? You're my buddy on the Republican Town Committee. We're going to put you on. We're going to go for qualified people. And there are qualified people out there. You just got to look for them. So I want to just thank everyone that came here. And, we'll just keep plugging away. But please, let's try to stop the negativity. It's not helping Enfield, and it's only going to put us behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd like to make the motion to suspend the rules and move items A1, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. I believe this should be L, M, and N to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Denny. Any discussion on the suspension of the rules? Hearing by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? We have 8 in favor, 0 against. All set? Councilor Ungar, then Councilor Crisati.
Okay, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and voicing their opinion. We listen to everything that you say, and we appreciate your time and your words. I wanted to mention that I attended the Narcan training that they had at Ministries of Love and Hope. That was 2 weeks ago. There was a good turnout for that, and it's nice that people want to educate themselves to learn how to combat this opioid crisis. We all tend to want to learn CPR in case we need it. We hope we never do, but we try to learn CPR. Now we're having to learn how to use Narcan and apply it if we need it. So it's a proactive approach. Also, 2 things that are coming up next month is Nantucket is having a wedding expo, and also a new business is coming to town. They're having a ribbon cutting ceremony for Savings Institute on Freshwater Boulevard, and that's February 27th at 4:30.
Thank you. Councilor Crisati.
All right, on another note, Bill Kiner, who's not with us, just want to inform everybody that he went back into the hospital last week, and he's out of the hospital now. But he would like to express his thanks to everybody that's on the council and out in the audience that, wished him well and hope for a fast recovery. So I wanted to make that mention on Bill's behalf today. And hopefully Bill will be here. He wasn't feeling so well this afternoon, and I think in his best interest that he should not be attending our meeting tonight. But I'm sure he's out there watching, so Bill, hope you're resting. And so I just wanted to make that a mention to everybody, but on his behalf, thank you. All right. Also, I just want to mention that the Opera House players, congratulations to them for their successful production. And I think this weekend is the last weekend that they're going to be putting on their show. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Also, they're still doing their fundraisers. So if you have an opportunity to go to the show, go to the show. It's a great production. Might want to even purchase a couple of seats for the High Street building. So I told him I'd give him a little shout out to that. A number of us went to the Four Chaplains Mass at St. Church and the reception afterwards, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Lucien LaFay, who was awarded a state award for all of his work that he does for the American Legion Post. So shout out to him and congratulations. Two other things I want to mention. This weekend is the Connecticut State Special Olympics Winter Games. The Enfield Allied Stars will be representing Enfield at the festival, which is held at Eversource out in Windsor off of Day Hill Road. And another thing that I would like to mention is that the Enfield Athletic Hall of Famers are going to be moving their plaques into the Hall of Champions at Enfield High School. So they're kind of excited to even have that. And hopefully in April, that we're going to be having Bill Rasmussen, who is the founder of ESPN, will be in attendance at that function that we will have at the end of April. Just a couple of things of mention here. And I'll make my comments about tolls a little later.
Anyone else have any? Hearing none, move on to item 9, Town Manager Report.
A few updates, and then if there are any questions on the PAR, I can entertain them. One, on Orlando, I'm happy to report that we received all of the permitting and approvals we needed, and the contractor started to move his equipment, Hinckley there. He started today, and the Public Works Director informs me that the work will be underway soon and probably last a couple weeks, so that's very good news. Number two, it's interesting we talk about bonding and not borrowing in the future, and it sounds good to be put on that kind of diet. Obviously, you know, we hope that our money for JFK is guaranteed. We're told that informally. I did have some conversation with Tom Arnone, and some in the legislature say it's almost guaranteed. But again, it's sort of like the check is in the mail, so I guess we'll be hopeful that that money was earmarked and that it will be guaranteed to the town. But unfortunately, that's different than the DOC money, the $2.5 million that the town is owed by the Department of Corrections for the sewer upgrade of the plant at WPC. And I was just informed again today by our consultant from Fuss and O'Neill that the February bond meeting has been continued again. So I would just urge you, and I know our legislators, I've invited them all, I think they're all going to be available here at the next council meeting, to urge them to continue their inquiries and their insistence that that money, it isn't something for a future project. It isn't being borrowed to build something new. We're owed it. It's contractual obligation. For the life of me, I don't understand why really it should be under the bond commission auspices at all. They should be cutting us a check. They owe us the money, but that's a separate conversation. On Eversource last time, I had it on my town manager report, and I'll update you today. We have received, and again, I just want to remind people that we have to be very circumspect about our comments, because we entertained and we wrote a confidentiality agreement with Eversource to be allowed to go on their property to do the testing. Testing is complete. The testing analyses have been done and are completed by the laboratory, and we have a March 4th meeting where we'll be moving forward to discuss the next steps. So I am, again, guardedly optimistic in that regard, and I will update you as progress is made. And again, that's for hopefully the future train station that we've been promised for 3 years hence, so that we would have parking on that side of the casket building and be able to have a full train station. We're also looking at terms in the short term, and I've talked to our legislators and I've informed you, for perhaps a platform on the east side across from the casket building until we are able to fully get the funding for the full station. So we're pushing towards that, and hopefully we'll have another meeting with DOT in the near future. I would just like also to say that John Wilcox, the Director of Finance, did, I think, a very fine job in the PAR report. He's here for any specific questions. I know the meeting is getting long, and I don't want to get into a back and forth, but he did address, I think, all of the pertinent questions that have been posed over the last few months in regard to our budget and how we collect taxes and how we get interest on money. I would just urge people to understand that, and we're open to anybody, especially Mr. Young, to come at any time, and Mr. Wilcox has corroborated this, to call and make an appointment. Come in. You don't have to wait for a council meeting. And he'll be more than happy to try to answer your questions. But municipal budget is guided by state laws and financing principles, and municipal budgeting is different than the private sector. It just is. So sometimes, you get a CPA or somebody who's looking at it through that lens, and it's different. We operate under different rules and statutes and regulations by the state. We've won over the years many awards for the budgeting process of the town of Enfield. It's exemplary. We're audited, and we have auditors that go through all of our books to look at it. So sometimes a question's asked, makes it appear, ooh, gotcha, that this isn't being done. Well, if you read the PAR report, none of that is out of the ordinary. Everything is in order in our budget. Mr. Wilcox and his staff do an excellent job for the town. And I just wanted to, again, offer an invitation to anybody. If they have any questions, you can always call and make an appointment with Mr. Wilcox, or he'll take a phone call. I'll just also say a couple other things. At last meeting, Mr. Tekatz had asked about ventilators in some of our vehicles at DPW. So we did check, and the Public Works Director is here. And the police cars, some of the K-9 units, got the outside window units, for air, stream. That's what they were for. Wasn't for DPW. I would like to say that we have strict anti-smoking policies that are adhered to by our Public Works Department. We've had no trouble or violations of it. I would just say that those persons do watch the meetings, and they do get concerned when they hear somebody perhaps, inferring that they're smoking legal or illegal substances in their vehicles. It isn't true. So, I mean, when we say things, they do have consequences. Our DPW staff works very hard. So I would just say when we make remarks, Bob is well-learned, and he does his research, but sometimes the consequences are hurtful if you don't have all the facts. Also, I'd be available to talk to Bob about the Medicare reimbursement, because my understanding, he said the bill was around, I think, $1,300, and that we got reimbursed $1,200. We have Medicare rates that are, I think the top reimbursement we get is about $600 or $700. So we're not reimbursed that full bill, but we can go over that and confirm it with EMS. And we have very strict rules about collection of in-town residents. So I would be interested to know what letter his wife received, and we can talk about that. I'm sure Bob will come in and talk to me. And absent any other questions on these issues,
Any questions
or
for
on
the town
PAR.
manager? Deputy Mayor Suzak?
I hear what you're saying, Chris, that, the responses to the budget questions are in the PAR. My problem is that, people come up to the mic, they read these things, it's like that aha moment. We all have to go home, we're all cross-checking everything, we're all looking at that. I just don't know if it's not in the best interest for us to read the answers into the record. I just feel like,
Well, you know what I would say is that sometimes we let the tail wag the dog, and I think we've seen that here. I think for the most part, the staff, the council does an exemplary job, and everyone has the right, and we've talked about the First Amendment, to come and be heard. But I think sometimes to then take everybody's time at the public meeting to read that, because one individual is listening and most people aren't even paying attention, you can decide if you think that's a useful benefit to us, and certainly I'll abide by your consensus at the next meeting, because I understand what you're saying, but it would be a long exercise. I think people who are here want to hear what we're talking about on the agenda tonight. And I'm going to make a bold suggestion, and I think one of our speakers alluded to it. Many towns, during their public communication, limit it to what's on the agenda. There's a reason for that. Not trying to limit anybody's freedom of expression or their First Amendment right, but people, all of you and people in the audience, you work all day, you get here, and now it's 9 o'clock and you're trying to deal with the issues, and sometimes we do get sidetracked and things get emotional about things that aren't on the agenda, that are out of our control completely. And what I would suggest is that the rules and procedures of the council, the joint bipartisan, look at it. We can ask legal counsel to get those rules from other communities. I think we've got to focus on the agenda at council meetings. Now, we used to have quarterly meetings, and I've suggested we do them here 6 to 7. Maybe that, and we did them once a month. Maybe during that period of time, you open it up to whatever anybody has on their mind about any issue, and we can sit and we can have a discussion about it. We actually could talk back and forth and not derail the meeting or delay the agenda that we have before us. Or the second meeting of the month, the end of the meeting, we used to have public communication, put it there. So if somebody really is interested and they want to come and do those kind of inquiries, and we could respond to it. But I just think we're really getting off track. And as Joey's, to his point, it's making it appear that we don't get along, that you're not bipartisan. And most all of the resolutions and all of the work we've done in the last 8 months has been unanimous. It's been bipartisan. And I think it's unfortunate that, people can come in and they have every right to, I agree. But maybe there's a time and a place for those comments. And maybe it isn't at the beginning of a council meeting to get everybody riled up on things that we really can't control, that are important in the state and in the country, but don't really help us get our work done, and it's counterproductive. So again, to the consensus of the council, maybe we want to look at that and have a forum where we can have those discussions. But I don't think it's probably the time or place to do it at the beginning of a council meeting when you have long agendas, you have important decisions to be made, and we are entertaining things that we have no control over. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, I probably agree with you, but I will say that, when a citizen comes in and they spend a half an hour in public communication, pointing out stuff that they feel are discrepancies in our budget, it makes people really uncomfortable. And I will hope that everybody out in the audience will sit and they will read that par, because I think it's something that, we owe to our staff. I just feel that these kind of things, the aha, I gotcha moments have got to stop. They've got to stop. It's not fair to the staff. It's just not.
Well, if you would like, under my section now, we could have, if the council would like, Mr. Wilcox is here. I had him prepared. If you'd like him to read it into the record, it's your prerogative.
I don't want to take a half an hour of reading it into the record, but I just don't know how we dispel what goes on when it's not fair to the staff. Sometimes we can do simple explanations, like you've
Well, maybe, John,
explained
if you come up, maybe you could hit some of the high points, the ones that seem to be most egregious, that were not correct. And I've sat here and listened to Mr. Young. I think his intentions are good.
Yes, they are, but they're not right. But they're not right, and
I
that's
know.
and that's what's not fair.
Well, and the other thing is, perhaps to my larger point, is maybe that's why public communication, those discussions should be left to a different venue. And maybe our public communication should be for matters on the agenda, so that we don't go off for a half an hour on things that are important, but not relevant to your agenda. Look at here, the time that we're taking and not getting to we have some important items to discuss. And I'm all for freedom of speech and the First Amendment, but again, it's always a time and place. And I think we can accommodate both. But just having sat here, I sort of have seen over the last, few meetings that we're getting derailed, we're getting distracted. And again, we talk about people wanting to live here and be part of the community. A lot of a positive attitude counts. And I'm trying to attract and keep good employees. And, they watch and they're here, and I want to keep them too. And I think we will. I think a lot of it's overblown. Do you know what? Of the 45,000 residents, do you know how many people are paying attention to all this? You, them. And if you look at the numbers, 50. The rest of the people think you're doing a pretty damn good job running their town. But Mr. Wilcox, why don't you come up and maybe you can address some of the high points?
Yeah, if you
And I don't want to say
just a
rebut
few-
or refute, because
just
it
a
makes
few
it look
high points,
defensive.
because it just
to
needs-
respond to some of Mr. Young's, and I don't want to call them accusations, but to some of his statements that perhaps were less than accurate.
Welcome, John.
Okay. First one, I went through and I, responded to, reviewed the minutes going back for past several meetings, and just went through and tried to address any questions that related to finance, basically. I believe most of them were from Mr. Young, but that's, I think there were a couple others. The annual audit, why does it take so long? Well, I think some of it is, or most of it is the fact that there's really not very many audit firms that do municipal accounting, or municipal auditing, I should say. The rules are specialized. It's a unique animal, and most of them don't take the time to specialize in it and learn the requirements. there are probably 3 or 4 firms in the state that do it. None of them responded to our RFP the last time. So, just as an aside, I didn't receive our electronic version of the CAFR, the Combined Annual Financial Report, until about 6 o'clock on December 31st. That's the day it's required to be reported to the state. Basically, it's one of those deals where the state requires it, they hit the target. Let's see, go through some of these things. He talked about workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is not billed on a payroll basis for us. We are on what's called a loss responsive plan. And what that basically means is we're responsible for the first $250,000 of every workers' compensation loss. When it gets to be higher than that, our insurance kicks in. So our insurance is a combination of an estimate of what that first $250,000 is going to be on every employee, on every loss that we have, plus a little bit for premiums above that. So when we changed our EMS salaries, we did not need to make an adjustment because all it would have been is just a reallocation of those workers' compensation costs. Let's see. The question was, why is overtime $75,000 when we had only one laborer with a salary of $50,000? The $75,000 in overtime for the Thompsonville revitalization is for the police walking patrols. That's money spent usually in the summer months, warmer months, and the walking patrols basically are probably 95% of that. The big change in investment income on the 2017 financial statements. Our investment income, we budgeted $110,000, and our actual was $2,130,000. We received a large donation from the Simkovitz estate, which was a donation to the Talented and Gifted program at JFK. That money is restricted for use on that program, and so we don't really budget for that because it's not available for us to spend on anything other than that program. But it is included in the investment income line on that financial statement. If you look at the 2018 financial statements, which are, we actually just received the hard copies of those today. The electronic version has been on our town website. The investment income is about $340,000, and most of that, about $100,000 of that relates to the income based on this program. So the amount that the investment income that is available to us to spend is about $200,000. And in one of his comments, we should be able to make more than 3% on our investments. Unfortunately, I don't know that that's really the case. We are very limited in what we can invest our money in. Basically, it's anything that is FDIC insured. We can invest in state investment, state bonds, things like that. But we're very much restricted, and the rates of return are very low. So, basically, they don't want us investing in high risk things and losing a ton of money. The delinquent taxpayer list has been, Mr. Ticasio, we have put it back on the town website, so you can go on there and see what the delinquent taxpayer list is. And then lastly, we talked about our tax receivable balances increasing. There are two main reasons for that. Mr. Ticasio, you had also said our collection rate should be about 99%. Our collection rate is about 98%, not 99%. The outstanding balance from FY18 at the end for the current year taxes was about $1,835,000. The amount billed was $89,396,000 for FY18. That's about 2.05%. So the outstanding amount was 2.05% of the amount billed. The prior year was about 1.82%. I'm not exactly sure what the reason for that increase was. I haven't also gone back prior years to look into the reason for those or what the balances were at those years either. The other big chunk on that was, and this is where municipal financial reporting gets pretty complex and confusing to many people. We basically write off. My predecessor decided to stop writing off individual accounts. So you basically show the true amount. That the true amount that's due at the end, and the true amount that we are not going to be able to collect. The amounts have been about $200,000 a year prior to her being there. I've continued her policy of not writing off accounts, and so you add each year you add a year of $200,000 additional balance, and that's why our tax receivable balance increases every year. Like I said, it's very difficult to explain it in a summary, but hopefully I've made some sense out of it at all. If you have any specific questions.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. You want for John?
No. Town manager about.
You're all set?
All
set.
Counselor Denny.
Thank you.
To the mayor, and I agree with you, Chris, in the sense that I think on a quarterly basis, we might hold a meeting here for the public to ask us questions prior to the council meeting, because in the past, we've been to every district, and some nights we have all staff and no one shows from the public. So, I mean,
I understand, and that's why you don't want to say that. You don't want to say people. When people have a specific issue, they come out.
Correct.
And I think we need a venue and a forum to be able to let them speak when those times occur.
And I think it should be on a council meeting, because everybody's here and your staff is still in the building.
And that's what my recommendation was. We've just been so busy with special presentations, we sort of let it go. But I think we'll resuscitate it. We'll bring it. It'll be 6 to 7. People can come earlier. Have a full hour. We'll have staff here, and anything that's on their mind, we could have a topic like we used to. But I think it'll be better. Everybody knows it's town hall. The town council's coming here anyway, and then we'll advertise it. And if people have specific things they want to hear or ask, we can do it then. And maybe then you could consider with your rules and procedures that the beginning of the council meetings perhaps would be limited to agenda items. I think it would behoove us all in the long run.
Anyone else for questions for the town manager? Reports of any special committees? Item number 11. Oh, sorry. Item 10, town attorney. Sorry about that. No formal report. Sorry about that. Item number 11, report of special committees.
Quick update on JFK. The RFQ submittals came in on the 15th of February. They will be distributed to committee members today. This Thursday's meeting will be reviewing, scoring, and shortlisting the firms. We had a total of 7 firms. Thank you.
Councilor Nguyer.
Okay, First Readers is having their trivia contest. This is their only fundraiser that they do all year, and that's this Saturday night, so we're hoping for a good turnout. The Enfield Together Coalition is working with the faith community, and they're planning a youth rally, and we're meeting with a potential speaker next week. Also, I attended the Communities Anti-Drug Coalition of America, which was sponsored by Youth Services and the Enfield Together Coalition, and that was in Washington, D.C. last week. We heard a great lecture from the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams. He addressed the country's opioid crisis, treatment, and taking action. For more info, is available on the surgeongeneral.gov. We attended this conference to better prepare ourselves through teaching prevention and to meet our senators and representatives, to thank them for their support and to ask them for their continued support. And that's it.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Facilities Committee has released the master plan, looking for the RFP. RFQ is out on that on the street. We'll be getting that back at the end of the month. You'll have 3 resolutions later on, and they will be for the Henry Barnard roof, which we will be going forward on, and hopefully we will be able to do construction of the remainder of the Henry Barnard roof over the summer and start on our next 2 roofs on the education side, which are the Eli Whitney and the Hazardville Memorial.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, moving to item 12, old business, appointments A, 1, 2, and 3 on page 1, we have none. Moving over to page 2, items 4 through 12, we have none. Do we have a motion on item 13? Do we move from the table? By Deputy Mayor Suzak. Second. By Councilor Muller. All those in favor from moving from the table by a show of hands? Opposed? We have 10 in favor, 0 against. We have a nomination. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd like to nominate Sandra Nucio.
Motion made. Second. Seconded by Councilor Muller. Motion to close by Councilor Sakala. Seconded by Councilor Denny. All those who close nominations by a show of hands. Opposed? 10 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Councilor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Sandra Nucio.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Bosco.
4.
Councilor Sakala.
Sandra Nucio.
Councilor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
Sandra Nucio.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Items 14 through 16, we have none. Item 17, do we have a nomination? Councilor Sakala?
Thank you. I'd like to
I'm
nominate.
sorry, move from the table.
From the table.
Sorry about that.
Sure.
Councilor Sakala, second by Deputy Mayor Suzak. All those in favor by removing from the table? Show of hands. Those opposed, 10 in favor, 0 against. Councilor Sakala.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Marcy Telesio.
Do we have a nomination?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Crisati. Another nomination.
I'd like to nominate John Petronella.
Nomination by Councilor Bosco.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Muller. Any other nominations? We have a motion to close nominations. Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Denny. All those in favor of closing nominations by a show of hands. Those opposed, we have 10 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Councilor Bosco.
Yeah, I put up John Petronella. I think that his character, his experience, his just all around being an Enfield person that will know, and this is what I was talking about, I want people that know what they're doing and experience, because that is one of the most important boards we have, and we really need to make sure whoever we put on is knowledgeable and will do what's right for the town of Enfield. And his integrity is second to none, and I just think he'd be a perfect fit.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Councilor Sferrazza.
So I will be supporting Mr. Petronella, and I have his application before me. And real quickly, where it says to outline your qualifications, he wrote, as a commercial, industrial, general contractor, I have experience in interpreting planning and zoning, specifications, applications, as well as dealing with zoning conformity issues. He's worked in his family's business there for decades. Most recently, put a $15 million addition onto our Nuntuck, and I know they do work all over the state, and they work with planning and zoning, so he's very familiar with it. So based on his knowledge, his experience, and his qualifications, I'll be supporting Mr. Petronella.
Sure, thank
Councilor
you.
Sakala.
I actually have no doubt that Mr. Petronella would be wonderful for this position. I'm going to be supporting Marcy for a couple of reasons. One, I think she's shown her dedication to this town on numerous levels, and I think she continues to do so even when people may not want to support her and for maybe not the right reasons, and I give her a lot of credit for that. I think she's qualified not only as a person and an Enfield resident, but she also has the knowledge of these types of situations that planning and zoning would be dealing with. I believe she is currently a member of Inland Wetlands, or was a member of Inland Wetlands, and I think that that knowledge will help her as well. She's a business owner, and I think that knowledge will help her in planning and zoning, because somebody who's gone through that process brings to the table very different set of skills that somebody who may have just worked in a business would bring. So I will be supporting Marcy.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller,
John Petronella.
Counselor Sferrazza,
John Petronella.
Deputy Mayor Suzak,
John Petronella.
Counselor Ungary,
John Petronella.
Counselor Bosco,
John Petronella.
Counselor Sakala,
Marcy Telesio.
Counselor Crisati,
Marcy Talicio.
Counselor Davis,
Marcy Talicio.
Counselor Denny, Counselor Mayor Ludwig.
John Petronella.
We have 6 for Mr. Petronella and 4 for Ms., I'm sorry.
Moving on to items page 3, items 18 through 20, we have no more appointments. Town manager, item B, appointments 1 through 11, none. Items 12 through 14, none. We have no appointments. P and Z commission appointed, council approve. Item D stays on the table, non-union pay plan. Item E, Nutmeg Solar stays on the table. Item F, school roof replacement stays on the table. Item G, resolution adopting opposition to the implementation of tolls on state roads in Connecticut.
Motion to remove from the table.
Councilor Muller. Second by Deputy Mayor Suzak. All those in favor of taking off the table by show of hands. Those opposed? 6 in favor, 4 against, if I read it correctly. Right. So motion's off the table. I will read the resolution, and then we can have discussion. Whereas the Enfield Town Council believes the implementation of tolls on Connecticut highways could result in increased traffic on secondary roads in the town of Enfield with motorists attempting to bypass the tolls, and whereas the council further believes the increased traffic on secondary roads would affect the quality of life of Enfield residents in numerous ways, including dramatic increase of heavy-duty commercial vehicles and tractor-trailer truck presence, encroaching on our scenic New England community, negatively impacting the town's character and atmosphere, a dramatic increase in traffic by heavy-duty commercial vehicles and tractor-trailers subjecting streets to increased drain damage and maintenance and repair costs, resulting in increased tax burden, crowding of secondary roads and increase in traffic accidents and disruption of pedestrian enjoyment in and around the roads affected, traffic congestion from increased vehicles and accidents, delaying response times for emergency personnel, causing significant safety concerns and compromise the standard of safety care, discouraging retail establishments shopping, putting our valued local business at a competitive disadvantage, increasing costs and convenience to residents. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby declare its opposition to the implementation of tolls on state highways within the town of Enfield's jurisdiction. Be it further resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby submit the resolution to the governor of the state of Connecticut, Connecticut State Legislature, submitted on January 14th by the town manager's office. Moved by Councilor Muller, seconded by Councilor Sferrazza. Now discussion on the motion? Councilor Sferrazza.
Before I begin, I just want to, Mr. Rutledge had asked a question. I just happened to have that information. I found it today. It cost the state of Connecticut $497,659 to construct 1 mile of road. And it cost us $99,417. It's the highest administration cost in the entire country. So to what you brought up before. So I'm going to be supporting this resolution. I'd like to explain to everybody why. Whenever a new law comes up in Hartford, the LOB has public hearings. People are entitled to go there, give their opinions. If people have that right, I don't understand why, as a town council, we wouldn't be extended that same right to speak on this. I am 100% aware that this decision will not be made by the Enfield Town Council. I know that the state legislature, the state senate, the House Senate, and Governor Lamont will make that decision. But I think as a councilor, I feel obligated to look out for the welfare of the citizens of this town, and I believe we should just let our views be known. I never purport that what we vote speaks for every single person. We have a representative democracy. I don't poll all 44,000 people. We try to do the best I can. I'm sure everybody here does. And if we didn't do a good job, we won't be sitting here next year. But as far as tolls go, it is true there's a lot we don't know about the tolls yet. We're not really sure what it's going to cost. We're not really sure where they're going to be. But let me tell you what we do know. We know that last month, Senator Alexandria Bergshaw out of Greenwich, Connecticut, introduced Senate Bill 102. And that has already been lodged up at the legislature. And she has introduced the bill for tolls. So that we do know. We also know that Governor Lamont campaigned that tolls would be restricted to trucks. And we do know now that 3 days ago, he's changed his mind on that. Now it's going to expand to cars. So those are things we do know. The other thing we know is that in terms of the gas tax, I heard that spoken about tonight. Connecticut has the 7th highest gas tax in the entire country. We pay 62 cents per gallon. That's 10 cents a gallon higher than the national average of 52 cents, and it's 12.5% higher of any state in the Northeast region. We also know that Connecticut has the unfortunate distinction of being 49th out of 50 states for overall tax burden for our citizens. We're only ahead of New York, which is 50th. We're number 49. And in terms of total tax burden, 12.6% of our individual income goes to taxes. I'm not reciting all these numbers because I know we're not the state legislature. We don't set tax. But I wanted it to give you in context. So when we talk about tolls going forward, what are we paying a fair share already? My understanding was the gas tax was supposed to take care of the roads for so many years. And what I found out with that is between 2000 and 2018, the revenue in the Special Transportation Fund actually increased 20%. And the debt service was only 9%. So it would look like we should have money there, but we don't, because the money was spent on public transportation projects and employee benefits. I do understand we passed a lockbox in November, and hopefully that would change in the future. In terms of increased traffic in Enfield, somebody suggested, well, you know what, people like convenience. They're going to stay on the highway. They're not going to try to save two bucks. Well, you know, maybe that's true. Maybe 7 out of 10 people will just stay on 91 and pay the toll. And three might get off the highway. That's 30%. I don't think we want a 30% increase in traffic. And then, you know, as I thought about the whole year, I just thought of the month of September for some reason. And what happens in September for almost 21 days just to our north, the Big E. So what would that do in the month of September if people are all trying to come up? It is going to increase our traffic on our streets. The last point I want to make, and this is the most important point of all, I'm all for infrastructure, and I understand the roads need to be fixed, and I think we need to find a way to see if we can cut our spending, or if we can't, find different revenue. But my problem with tolls is that it's a tax. and it's a regressive tax. And by that, what I mean, it's a tax that's going to be applied uniformly to every car that goes through the toll. So if you're driving through that toll booth, you're going to be or the gantry, you're going to be charged the same regardless of your income. So if you're commuting, because I know that was asked tonight too, and I don't know these numbers to be true. I got this from the DOT report, so these numbers could be less or more. The average in the United States is 7.7 cents per mile. In Connecticut, that DOT report recommended 5.5 cents per mile. So just for discussion purposes, if a family in Enfield commutes to Hartford on the highway, it's about 17 miles from Enfield to Hartford. It's going to cost that person, and then to come back, it's going to cost $1.87 a day, round trip. $1.87 times 5 is $9.35, approximately $37.40 a month, or $448 a year. The reason it's a regressive tax is because it's going to be applied uniformly to every car. So if you're a $30,000 wage earner, you're going to be taxed at $448. And if you make $150,000, you're going to be taxed at $448. So although I understand that roads are important, I don't think trying to fix this problem on the backs of people from Enfield that are trying to go to work every day and come home, they should have to pay an extra $448. If you're making $30,000 a year, I bet $500 is a pretty good piece of change. You could do a lot of things with that. And it's a regressive tax because the person that's making $150 is going to pay the same. So for that reason, I think it's appropriate that this council takes action just to be heard, and to wait until all the facts come in, and it's too late. Once the bill is approved, it's too late. Do I really think this is going to change what's going to happen? I don't even think about that. I just think about our responsibility to our citizens. And you know what? To borrow a phrase, and I mean this in the most complimentary way to Liz Davis, she always says, never lose your voice. And I think if we don't vote on this, that's exactly what we'd be doing. So I'm going to support it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Sakala?
Thank you. First, I would like to thank everybody who came out and spoke today about the tolls. I appreciate everybody's input. I implore you all to spend this much time and energy commenting on our public hearing for our town budget as well. We would welcome that feedback from all of you as well. I will agree with Councilor Sferrazza that there has been one bill put forward. It's not formal legislation. There's been no public hearing on it, so it's not a formal bill. We don't know where the tolls will go, if tolls will come here. I think the governor said he would consider taxing cars as well as trucks, not that he would. My understanding from the information that I received today, this afternoon, so I'm assuming it's accurate, is that he will perhaps be putting two, I guess, options in his budget tomorrow. One will be just taxing trucks or tolling trucks, and one will be cars and trucks. So it will be then up to the legislature to approve one, other, or hybrid of those. So none of us up here have any idea where the tolls will go, if we will have them, if cars will be tolled, if trucks will be tolled, if it will just be on 91, if it will be on 95 and 84 and Route 2 and everywhere else that we have in Connecticut. I will say that I travel to Massachusetts 5 days a week. I work in Springfield. So if there is a toll on 91, that's going to affect me. I will also say that I am not completely against tolls. I want to know what this bill is going to look like. I want my state representative and my senator to come in here and tell me what it's going to look like. I want them to tell me what it's going to mean for my town. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? And I will say that 2 or 3 meetings ago, I actually asked them to be invited. And I was told by Senator Hall, or State Representative Hall, I believe, the one that said that she'll wait until after the budget is presented to come in and talk to us. So we don't have any additional information. I will say, and again, I'll agree with Carl, these are the 2 points we're going to agree to, that this resolution is going to make no difference whatsoever. We're just going to vote on it. But to take, and I'm going to quote you, Chris, with all the respect in the world, this is counterproductive, doing this resolution, and it's something that we have no control over. But yet, we're spending the time doing it. And we're going to spend the time doing it because that's what certain people want. And I take time out of my schedule to listen to people come up here and speak each and every meeting, and I will continue to do so. And I will be respectful to everybody's opinions and their positions. I very much appreciate when people come up and have their positions backed in fact and in data, and not just emotion and just information that's not accurate, we'll say. But I am not going to support this resolution. We do not have enough information to support this resolution. And this being taken off the table and voted on today is premature, and I don't think we should be doing it. There's probably a slew of other reasons that I will let other people up here talk about, but there is no formal legislation on tolls, so we should not be making a formal resolution against the tolls. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Crissati.
Yeah, just coattailing on what Gina has just stated. I have my hesitations and reservations in voting yes or no on this resolution. Am I in favor of tolls in Enfield? Probably not. The thing that kind of bothers me in regards to this resolution, and I will state it again, it was not a bipartisan resolution. When I have to look at the resolution in opposition to the implementation on tolls on Connecticut highways, I'm more concerned about the town of Enfield. And then it states the Enfield Town Council believes, and then the council further believes, and that the Enfield Town Council does hereby declare the opposition to it. We had no say in this resolution, and that's the thing that bothers me. If we were included in this resolution and we came to an agreement respectfully, then this is something that we could take a look at. It's not a bipartisan resolution. I need more information and knowledge of where the information that came to be on 1 through 5. Is this fact or is this emotion? Where these sources come from? The resolution does not even address the cost to the commuters, which is the primary concern to our Enfield residents. It's not even addressed. It's something that was addressed here in regards to discouraging retail establishments, and it could increase costs to our residents because we have to pay more in their stores. But it doesn't address the cost to the commuters. I would like to see this tabled again to have that included in it. What is the cost going to be to the people of in Enfield? We don't know that. I'm here to represent my constituents. I think there was a couple of people that came in and they spoke today, which was, they need more data. Where do people in Enfield stay on this? Where do they stay on this issue? I've had people call me, and they're against tolls. And the main reason why they're against tolls is because the cost of what they're going to have to pay. That's their primary concern of what I heard. I live on Route 5. Am I concerned about traffic on Route 5? Absolutely. But the way that this was brought upon us was not correct. We should have all been involved, and we weren't. And if I'm going to represent the people in District 2 or the people of Enfield, I want to do what's best for them. It's not what we want, it's what the people want. I'm asking for more information directly from our state reps. And then before we even vote on this, I'm asking you to consider this. I would like to see in writing what this is from our state legislatures. What is it going to cost the people in our town for this? I think it's a premature vote. We're voting on something that doesn't even exist yet. Will it come up? Probably will. Do I want tolls? Do I want Route 5 to be coming in through here? No, I don't. But the way that this was brought upon us, the way that there was a picket out there on tolls, the TV brought in, where did it come from? Didn't come from us. I'm all set, thank you.
Councilor Bosco.
Well, just like normal. You know, you talk, and that's all we hear is talk. You now have a Democratic representative. Where's he? You know, you can talk about Carol's not here, but where's Tom? You could talk about not being involved. It's talk. It's all we hear is talk. So this resolution's been out for, what, 3 weeks? 4 weeks? Not one of us come over, you didn't come and say, hey, you know, I want to add something to that resolution, or I want to do something. No, let's stall it. Let's keep stalling it. Let's keep stalling it. That's why, huh? Well, you could have.
We could have voted on it last week.
Right, and we held it off, and there were no other things brought up on it. You know, this is going back from day one. When I first got on the council 12 years ago, and here I am talking about things in the past, our packet was that big because people didn't want to do things because they didn't want to ruffle feathers. Well, you know what? I'm not willing to sit and do nothing. So we know that we're going to get 4 no votes. So what are we supposed to do? Sit here with our hands up in the air and just not do anything? Just like any other budget, it takes 6 votes. One of these days, maybe you'll have 6 votes, and we'll be sitting on the other side saying the same thing. But right now, there's 6 votes. If there's 6 votes to pass it, it passes. All you got to do is count the 6. If it's with your input or your not input, I guess that's what happened. You guys could have done whatever you wanted to try to add, subtract, or nothing. But you did nothing. All you're doing is just saying that you don't have the facts. Well, you know what? I see Carl did his facts. You know, why didn't you go get your facts and bring us something and say, hey, this is what I have for facts? It's all a political game. But I will say one thing, that Governor Cuomo came out and said it the other day, that the revenues in New York are way down. And wait a minute, maybe because he started taxing everyone, he's just now seeing it, because I raised the taxes so high that people moved out. And that's what's happening here in Connecticut, especially down the Gold Coast, because these people have money. It's easy to change your address to a different place and then go to a state that has nothing. We're taxing our residents to death on the municipal side and on the state side. And if we don't at least stand up and at least let it known how we feel, you're not doing anybody any justice. And all it is saying, you know what, we don't want tolls in the state of Connecticut. To me, by not even saying that, you want them. I mean, this is just nothing. It's just a non-binding resolution just so they can say down in Hartford that, hey, you know what, there's a town that really doesn't like it, that's going to talk for its people, at least the people that don't want it. You know, this is just ludicrous. And to say you guys weren't involved, you guys have leadership meetings every Wednesday, is it? I'm not privy to go to that leadership meeting, but that's when leadership is supposed to hassle that stuff out. And it didn't happen in leadership. And they just keep trying to throw jabs at it was one-sided. Well, no, you could have done it at leadership. You had it out for 4 weeks. Nobody brought it up. Nobody tried to add. Nobody tried to change something. I didn't get one phone call from your side saying, hey, you know what, Joey? I don't really like what's here. Let's change that. So excuses. And I don't want to say what I really want to say because it's not proper for TV. But, you know, I won't say it. I'm gonna finish.
Thank you.
We wasted enough time.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Against.
Counselor Crisati.
Against.
Counselor Davis.
Against.
Counselor Denny.
Against.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
6 in favor, 4 against, no abstentions.
Item 13, new business. We have none on the consent agenda, none on appointments, B, 1 or 2. Item C, town manager appointments, or item D? None. Items for discussion have been moved, A1 has been moved to miscellaneous. B1 is no appointment. C, no town manager appointments. D, no P&Z appointment. And we move to E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, and N has been moved to miscellaneous. So first item on the consent agenda, request for transfer of funds of planning and zoning for $3,068. Chris, real quick.
Yeah, basically, in last year's budget, it was reduced beyond what the mandatory minimum was. There are state requirements in regard to posting legal ads, which is quite expensive, and also copying reproduction. This was within the budgets, and it's an internal transfer to cover those costs. We've seen the state looking to allow, perhaps going forward, that we could advertise, online and stop paying the exorbitant costs, sometimes that the newspapers charge, but at this juncture, we have to pay them. So that's what this is.
Any questions on the consent agenda? By a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 in favor, I believe. Yes, 9 in favor. Excuse me, 8 in favor, 0 against. Moving on to item E, request, and again, we're under miscellaneous. Item 15, request transfer of funds for public safety of $29,924.17. Resolved in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfers hereby made. And I'm just going to read, I won't read, I've been told I don't have to read the accounts. So distracted driver enforcement program of a total of $29,924.17 from the DDHVE grant revenue to distracted driver enforcement program, $29,234.24 for overtime, $423.90 for Medicare, $230.95 for workers' comp, and unemployment of $35.08. Certified that the above funds are available on February 8th by John Wilcox, the Director of Finance, approved by Chris Bronson, the Town Manager, on 2/13/19. By Councilor Muller. Second. By Deputy Mayor Suzak. Any questions on this?
See how much easier that is, not having to read the account numbers? So we've made one good improvement here tonight. This is basically a distracted driving grant that we get for the police department. We've been awarded this money. They're going to do enforcement in April and August. This allows them to transfer funds to their overtime account to perform the enforcement.
Any questions? Councilor Ferrazza? No questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Any questions for the Town Manager? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco is out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
I believe Counselor Davis is left for the night. Is that correct? Does anyone know? Thank you. Counselor Denny.
Abstain.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Don't matter.
have 7 in favor, 1 abstention.
Okay, moving on to item S, resolution to authorize the carry forward unspent funds of the distracted driver account. Resolved that the finance director is authorized to carry forward unspent funds from the distracted driver grant fiscal year 2018-19 appropriations, revenue and expenditure accounts in org code 2500630 into the next fiscal year until all monies are spent, submitted on February 15, 2019 by the town manager's office. By Counselor Muller.
Second.
By Counselor Crissati. Chris, just moving money that's.
Yes, this is to effectuate the prior item on the agenda to allow them to enforce the grant money they've received. Zero cost to the town, 100% reimbursement.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary. 4. Counselor Bosco is still out. Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving to item G, resolution adopting an adult and community services program job manager description. In accordance with the Chapter 7, Section 2 of the Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby adopt the job description for the position of Adult and Community Service Program Manager, submitted on 2/18/19 by Don Homer Bouthier, Director of Social Services. By Counselor Muller.
Second.
By Counselor Denny. Chris, any?
This was, again, developed last year as part of the budget for reorganization of the Department of Social Services, and I ask that you adopt it. Dawn is going to be coming up for the next 3 grants, so if you have any questions about it, she can answer as well.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco is still out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
We have 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item H, resolution authorizing the town manager to sign grant applications for the NCAAA to support the Enfield Adult Daycare for 2020. Whereas the North Central Area Agency on Aging, NCAAA, provides 2 grants to the Enfield Adult Day Center, and whereas the Enfield Day Center is in the process of submitting 2 grant applications to the North Central Area Agency on Aging, Inc. for funds that will be available to the town in fiscal year 2019-20. Resolved that the town manager, Christopher Dover Bronson, is authorized to sign and submit grant applications in the name and behalf of the town of Enfield with the North Central Area Agency on Aging, Inc., submitted on February 19th, 2019 by Don Homer Bouthier, Director of Social Services. By Counselor Muller. Seconded by Counselor Crissati. How you doing? Welcome.
Oh, welcome,
Hi.
Dawn. I would just preface this by, this is part of a much larger question. So that on the face of it, it's a grant to fund the adult daycare, and we've applied for it in past years as the others that are on the agenda this evening. The difference is, over the last several months, we've been giving you a lot of information in regard to the adult daycare program, the overall cost of running it, the participation and options to do something different. Why this is the time of year we have to apply for it, but truthfully, once we apply for this amount of money, it will be to the exclusion of other funds that are available in this area for other programs that we could apply for. So I'm going to be, I think, as transparent as possible. If you think during the budget, and you're not making that ultimate decision tonight, but it's sort of a bellwether about the future of the program, based on the cost of running it, the low participation. If we are considering during the budget that you want to discontinue supporting that program and transition those individuals in it to the Felician Sisters and other programs, then you would not support filing for this grant. We would not apply for it, and then Dawn would be able to apply for other grants so that we don't lose that funding. Because our participation was so much lower last year than what we anticipated in the grant, it's going to be curtailed and much reduced this year because we were about 50% short. So that's it kind of in a nutshell. You're not eliminating the program by this vote, but I think you are sort of sounding and sending a message that, you know what, we are going to look to spend the money for the entire adult daycare differently. We remain available, if that's your desire and you want to voice it this evening, for Dawn to transition these people. It would take about a month. There aren't that many of them, and that would be your chance to do it. But by not applying for this doesn't mean during the budget you couldn't fund the adult daycare. It just means that the amount of this grant, which probably would end up being how much, Don?
It'd be about 50% of what we're asking
Which
now.
is-
So we go from $20,000 to a $10,000 grant.
So in the cost of the program, which is about, the cost of our staff is about $125,000 a year, it's really not going to make that much difference. But it's just, we wanted to bring it to your attention. We didn't want to throw, it's not, I'm not saying good money after bad in a derogatory sense about the program, but if you think you're not going to be budgeting for that program, then it would be better even 10,000 that we can apply for other money, and she can explain that at greater detail. But that's really what we're looking at. And again, as we said with the adult daycare, and Donald Nunes is here, there's a document from 2015. It hasn't been part of this discussion of pros and cons about the efficacy of the program or the fact that it's been wonderful for the town over the last decades. But it shows that we have to invest about $300,000 in costs starting this budget year to improve the building. We have 2015 values, but it's for exterior, interior, HVAC, AC, and that's a commitment you'd have to be making this year's budget as well. So this is just an opportunity for you to consider that, but I didn't want to be disingenuous and think, or people at home, that it's just about this $20,000 grant. I think it's about the larger issue of the program itself and whether you want to continue. As we've said, it's budget choices. Do we want to support this, or do we want to target that money for something else and assist these people to get into, quite frankly, facilities that offer more than ours does? So I will turn it over to questions for Dawn or for you.
Anything else, or open up the questions or anything else?
Yeah, I think, in terms of the question, I think Chris summed up really nicely. The reason we broke it out in 3 different increments, normally we'd come before you with one resolution and you just say, go to town on the NCAA grants. What we're finding is, and we've been told this by the NCAA, is that we have the largest number of grants in Enfield, in this region, from the NCAA. However, when we asked for more money, like last year when we went in for a grant for the senior minor repair program, for example, that the Commission on Aging runs, they gave us money for that, but they reduced money for the other grants. And so that's basically how they balance everything out. So I think that's why we decided to give you so much information separately on each one of the grant programs that we fund in each one of the divisions, so that you could make some decisions and make it as transparent as possible.
Any questions? Councilor Ferrazza.
Don, I just have a couple of questions. How many towns in Hartford County have adult daycare?
How many municipalities?
Municipalities.
We have one, and Windsor has one.
So there's
there's
what,
2 in the greater
26 towns in
28 towns in the greater
There's only
Hartford
2
region?
that even offer this.
Right.
And how long have we offered adult daycare?
We opened adult daycare in 1992.
And how many clients do we currently have going every day to our facility?
Every day, almost none. What we do, we had a 2-day minimum, which basically, most folks come half-day, and they go multiple days, but half-days, and that kind of makes up their 2 days of enrollment. We have about 13 people rostered, and that's been pretty stable. So on any given day, we have an average of probably 8 to 10 folks
8 to
maximum.
10 people?
Yeah.
And they're all Enfield residents?
No. We have, the Adult Day Center also takes out-of-town clients, primarily from Summers and from Suffield, because their dial-a-ride services provide transportation to and from our center.
So out of the 8 or 10, how many are from our town?
Out of the 13, I'd say probably 9 are. The 2 new inquiries have both been from out of town.
Okay. And I heard the manager was talking about the building.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe Chris, this is for you. So, this isn't an optional thing, that if we were to keep this program open, we have to commit $300,000 this year. Is that right?
He can address it. Basically, the recommendation was made in 2015, and we haven't done it, but it's going to have to. He can address, he assessed this for me, so we would have all the information, so he can address that.
All right, so part of the Honeywell project, they did upgrade the BMS controls, which is the building management system controls, and the boiler, and they also upgraded the lighting controls, and some water conservation measures. But what is still remaining, I'm just going to read to you from, is we have to replace the roof, cap, and exterior masonry at the front entrance. On the interior, you're looking at ceiling systems, flooring, kitchen cabinetry, sinks and the like, and we have to replace the air handler units, which is $82,000 in itself just for that, in 2015 dollars. And we still have to do electrical panels. There's no emergency generator there, and looking at hot water tanks and the like. So we're in it for right now for 2015 dollars is $283,000. So you got to factor in inflation and the like. You're easily at $300,000 now with all that, just to keep the building both inside and outside either up to code or stop the roof from leaking, and because it's time. It was time in 2015, and it's 4 years past that time now.
Okay. Don, I have another question. So people go there, clients pay, whatever. Our staff there, what does it cost us to run the program? Is there going to be a shortfall with not the number of people we had hoped this year?
So the requirement is, in basic safety would require that you have basically 3 staff on. The requirement is a 1-to-7 ratio. So right now, we're technically staffed for 21 clients at any given time. We have, based on budget last year, I think cut to the minimum amount of staffing that we can have. We went to part-time staff for the health aides and the recreation person. When the recreation person retired in the fall, we didn't refill that position. The manager picked up those duties. We just added a part-time clerical person so they could pick up the billing, which is a huge chunk of what we do. We have a lot of third-party reimbursement and a lot of grant funds coming in for folks. And we do have some full-pay clients, but primarily people are on some form of financial assistance to go. So with that, not refilling the position for the rec person, I think, I went to social work school, not to finance school, but I think we are going to probably break even this year if we can do anything about it. Our food costs have been reduced, obviously, because we're not buying as much food. So our CRT contract, we're about half-mast with that as well. But on the other side of that, we're also at half-mast with the reimbursement that we get for those lunches through the state food program. So it's all kind of intertwined together. I don't know if that's more than you asked for, but...
No, that's good. I'm just trying to pinpoint one simple thing.
Okay.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
when we do all the things we need to do and we collect the money, are we even, ahead, or behind?
So there is a general fund contribution, so we're certainly not even.
And what will that be this year?
I think it's about 112, Mr. Finance Director, for what you put in at the beginning of the budget year. That's not counting 50% of the revenue on the NCAA grants. I think that's going to be another $13,000 that we're going to have to come up with somewhere.
So about $125,000. And what was it last year?
I think it was about the same last
We
year.
had to kick in 125.
Yeah.
Have we ever? When's the last time we didn't have to kick anything in?
I'm going to say never. I think there's always been a contribution.
So the last question is, I guess, so we're looking at 300 plus 100, so about $425,000. So when I think about the adult daycare, I think of how proud I am that the town has offered this service, and I want to be very clear how important it is for family members when you have someone that needs that care, that we can offer that compassionate care. I think that's just a wonderful program. I also think about, though, not having been a councilman, but listening, the other people in our community that are seniors or disabled, and I hope I understand this correctly, the state of Connecticut is going to be not perhaps giving us the tax abatement for these folks. Don't they usually give us something for that?
The homeowners tax credit for the seniors and the disabled folks was unfunded by the state, so I believe you voted to cover your half at the time.
That was last year.
Yes, correct.
So we'd have to do that again this
You
year.
have to make a decision this year about what you're going to fund for the tax credit, correct.
Councilor Sfraza, you were not here last year, but that is the elderly tax credit, but it is for elderly and is for disabled that are so designated under Social Security.
Okay.
So the state mandates, it's really an unfunded mandate of $350,000 that we have to pay. And then the town, for the last 2 years, although there's no obligation now to pay the other half, it's about $350.
Okay.
We've done it. We were concerned about the budget this year, so we send out a letter.
I remember that.
The council did, so people would be aware that it might not be, that other half might not be forthcoming because they rely on it. I will just tell you about, John can correct me, I think about 600 people avail themselves of the program, and I sent to the council. Dawn, how many inquiries from those folks have you been getting about?
We're getting nailed. I mean, it's 5 to 10, generally speaking, calls or walk-ins about.
So this program.
Yeah, that they're afraid the elderly tax credit you will not fund.
So this program would assist 600 Enfield residents that are either seniors or disabled in some way.
In terms, are you talking about in terms of the funding is equivalent to restoring the tax credit?
Right. We'd
Pretty
have
much.
to, right.
Yeah.
So,
I also just want to say, in terms of reference, that funding level before, when you get around 4, it's pretty much the general fund contribution for the Child Development Center, which serves 220 kids a day, just in terms of contextual reference for you.
okay. So I know we're not voting tonight on the program. It's just a grant. I'd like to do the most good for the most people. So unless I'm missing it, please correct me if I'm wrong. We're $425,000 to benefit 3 very important people. I'm not diminishing the value of the program versus if we took that money and earmarked it for tax relief for our seniors and our disabled folks, potentially 600 people would benefit.
Yes, I mean, Wilcox would have to do the numbers, but yes, that's generally.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Denny.
First of all that dollars that you said, that's town cost, and the building doesn't belong to us. So I was under the impression that we are splitting the cost of the repairs of that building with Enfield Housing, who owns the building? Or is that all our cost? Not for you, him, with the building.
Mr. Denny, perhaps the town attorney, because he was looking at that lease for me today in case those
I
questions
thought that
came
was
up.
a split 50-50 to take care of that building.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but the lease does call for several things that the town has to do for maintenance of that building.
Okay.
So, and I don't know how the numbers break down. I mean, yeah, Don or...
We're responsible for the maintenance. I believe the lease is a minimal lease, as I recall. It's like-
There is no rent on the lease.
A roof and boilers and all of that, we're responsible for?
That's my understanding when I read the lease, but I haven't read it
I
recently.
believe that's how the lease reads, yes. For not paying rent, we're responsible for the maintenance of the building. And I think,
I
certain
think I
parking lot
would
areas.
like somebody to look into that for sure, because I don't think that's right. I believe that it's a 50-50 split. I was involved in having Matt Koppler and Scott Bertrand look at that, so I would like you to look at that more thing.
He's
I
gonna
want to
look
go
at-
on the
he's gonna
record
look at it
because
right
I
now.
know I'm going to get outvoted by 6 people again. I am adamant about keeping that place open. I just want to go on the record to say that. I don't care if you're who you are or where you are. St. Joe's doesn't offer the same situation. We have destroyed that place in the last year or 2 years and a half with the turnover of the people that have been there. It could have been a better situation, and it is not. And I am adamant about it. I know I'll get outvoted again, but I'm going on the record. I want that place open. I don't care what the cost is. It's the same thing I'm adamant about public safety. This is a necessity for us in Enfield to do this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, and by the way,
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
Against.
Counselor Srazza.
Against.
Counselor Suzak.
Against.
Counselor Ungary.
Against.
Counselor Bosco.
Against.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
Against.
There's 6 in favor, 3 against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item I, a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign grant applications to the NCCAA to support Family Resource Center for 2020, whereas whereas the North Central Area Agency on Aging, NCAA, provides grants to community services, and whereas the community services is in the process of submitting grant applications to the North Central Area Agency on Aging, Inc., for funds that will be available in the town in fiscal year 2019-2020. Resolved, the town manager, Christopher W. Bronson, is authorized to sign and submit the grant applications in a name on behalf of the town of Enfield with the North Central Area Agency on Aging, Inc., submitted on February 19th, 2019, by Don Homer Bouthier, the Director of Social Services. By Counselor Muller.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Crisati. Sorry, Don, go ahead.
So this is the Grandparents Supporting Grandkids Grant. It's a program that we have operated at the Family Resource Center for, I want to say, the last 10 or 12 years. Has been very important to the Commission on Aging. They've had a great commitment for this program. Kay Talarita started it decades ago and continues to mentor it. This grant allows us to run 2 cycles as opposed to 1 cycle that we used to do with our town funding, and it does provide for the staff person's funding as well as food for when the grandparents come and on-site childcare. Last year, we were able to get some additional from the NCAA, about $3,200. We were able to help the grandparents offset additional costs for like dance classes and summer camp and things like that. And it was because we went above and beyond the call of duty when it came to our numbers for service. So hopefully that will happen for us again, but this would allow us to go forward with the application for next year.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Srazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco. 4. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Item J, under miscellaneous resolution, authorizing the town manager to sign grant applications submitted to NCAAA to support community service for 2020. Whereas the North Central Area Agency on Aging, NCAAA, provides grants to community services. Whereas Community Services is in the process of submitting grant applications to the North Central Area Agency on Aging, Inc. For funds that are available in the town for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Resolved that Town Manager Christopher W. Bronson is authorized to sign and submit the grant applications in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield, the North Central Area Agency on Aging, Inc., submitted on February 19, 2019, by Don Homer Bouthier, Director of Social Services. By Councilor Muller. By Councilor Crisati.
Perfect. So these two grants allow us to do outreach into the community. It's specifically for seniors, and so what happened last year is we put the additional grant in for the senior minor repair program, and these two grant amounts went down. So now I think we may have a little more flexibility for ask for additional fundings for this, and one of the things that we'd like to be able to do is expand the Enfield Cares program that you were so gracious in letting us go forward with existing resources. I think that might draw in some funds to offset the staff costs with that. So I think that would be helpful to us. And one of the other things, you probably saw last week that the town manager's office released the grant announcement. We finally got the announcement. And so we would like to do some outreach for elderly, for over 50 with the homeless grants with this as well. So we're hoping to coordinate all those activities out of Adult and Community Services.
Yeah, great news with that grant.
That was fabulous. Yep.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Srazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, and no
Moving on
abstentions.
to item K, resolution referring, thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. Resolution authorize, item K, resolution referring to the Midtown Enfield Tax Increment Financing Master Plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Whereas Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-339DD authorizes municipalities to establish tax increment districts, and whereas the Enfield Town Council is committed to economic and commercial development, and whereas such development has the potential to expand the economic vitality, create jobs, improve the infrastructure, and expand housing choices for Enfield residents, and whereas the Enfield Town Council has authorized the preparation of the Midtown Enfield Tax Increment Financing Master Plan, whereas the Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-339EE requires that the Town Council transmit the master plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a written advisory opinion, including a determination of the master plan's consistency with the town's plan of conservation and development. And whereas the Town Council requests that the Planning and Zoning Commission complete its review for the 90 days of its receipt of the master plan, now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council hereby refers the Midtown Enfield Tax Increment Financing Master Plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review as required by Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-339EE. Motion to approve by Councilor Muller, second by Councilor Crisati.
Well, I think this is an accomplishment as well. This was a very expedited timeframe in which we had hired Patrick, into which he reviewed it, did a lot of work with Lori Witten. Our Economic Development Commission did a lot of work on it, and here we are. They said they would have it the second meeting of February, and Patrick is here. I'm going to just he did a lot of heavy lifting last time in his presentation, and 3 main issues I'm going to ask him to address, and then 2 things going forward. One, the question was really what were the percentage, the boundary of this TIF, which is both by around the square and in Thompsonville. As you remember, we can only use 10% of the grand list, so we didn't want to use 100% of that just on this TIF. fill you in on how much they did use of it, leaving other percentage available for the town. Number 2, the length and duration of the TIF. And then 3, the percentage of that additional money that will be generated in taxes that we're going to put back into the TIF district for projects there. He'll then tell you the next steps after it goes to planning and zoning, the requirement of the public hearing, and where we go from here. But I think it's a really big accomplishment. It'll be good to have this tool available to assist going forward with economic development in Thompsonville and the Square area. Patrick?
Welcome, how you doing? Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the Town Council. It's a pleasure to be back. We've been working very diligently along with the Economic Development Commission to prepare these documents for you. And I'll stick to the outline that was just provided. Essentially, the steps are development of the district master plan. You have to refer it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that's the action item we're seeking tonight. You have to hold at least one public hearing, and then the legislative body, ultimately would adopt the TIF district and master plan, but it's got to be at least 90 days after this referral to Planning and Zoning, okay?
Sorry, good. Councilor Bosco first, sorry, questions?
You let him at least, the other 3 questions about the
Go
percentage,
ahead.
the amount, and the duration, so you have that information. Go ahead, Patrick.
So under state law, you can go up to 50 years. We're suggesting 20 years for the TIF. You can always extend it. The other communities have gone with the approximately 20 years. Seems like a good amount of time for that reinvestment, and then you'll reassess as to whether or not you would continue it. The other portion that there's a decision that has to be made is what percent capture. Are you going to capture 100% of the taxes that are generated off a new development, or some portion thereof? The communities have varied. Some have gone 100%, some have gone 50%. It's my recommendation, and the Economic Development Commission's, is to go with 50%. So that means 50% of any of that increased value, the taxes generated from that, 50% would go into the general fund, and 50% would be separated into a separate account, and that could be reinvested within this Midtown TIF district. Okay? The actual boundaries of the TIF district, it was discussions with the town staff, assessor, the finance director, the Department of Development Services. We focused really on the core commercial TOD area of Thompsonville, along the riverfront, the Bigelow and the Lumberyard, as well as a few different properties along Enfield Street that we could see potentially getting investment over the next 20 years. And then in the mall area, essentially north of Hazardville to the east of I-91 to Palumba Drive, and then Elm Street, with basically the Kohl's complex also included. And when you bring all of that together, essentially we're at about 6% of the total taxable real estate in the community. Under the state statute, you can have up to 10%. We thought it was really important for the community to have some flexibility going forward, such that if you wanted to create an additional TIF or multiple TIF districts, you can have that flexibility in the future. So the one that is proposed today represents about 6% of the taxable value.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Bosco.
Okay, I'm for this, but not. And the thing that I'm not, and my question's going to be for Chris through the mayor, town manager, the only thing I don't like about the whole thing is the duration of the time. I think 20 years is just way too long. When it goes to planning and zoning, if we decide that it could, we want to change the years to either 10 or 15, once they make that decision, we can, before we adopt it, can we look at that again?
I believe before the public hearing.
Yes, so the steps remaining after this would be a public hearing, and then adoption. So we have all the way up to the point of adoption to make changes.
But we would have to do it before the public hearing, because we can't advertise 20 years and make a material change. So you'd have the
Right,
next
but
3
it could
months
go to
consider
planning
it.
and zoning, and if there was a consensus of 6 votes, then we could change it. If there wasn't, well,
And as
Can I speak to the 20 years
Yeah.
based on my experience being a local economic developer for 20 of them? Is the fact that on some of these major projects, if you are to end up providing a tax rebate to a developer, again, there's a but-for question, but if you do provide that benefit, there's a period of up to 10 years, okay? And that developer may not even come to you for the first 4 or 5 years. So you're going to want this to be long enough to be able to get the different projects that are envisioned. The mall area is going to take some time to get to attract those developers, for them to go through the whole permitting process, come to you potentially for this TIF rebate. It's going to take time. So I would highly recommend that 20 years would actually be a very
And to his point, by the time you get through the process, apart from giving them the tax rebate, it's just to try to build that fund up, Joey. So if it took 4 or 5, 6 years to get somebody, and now we actually see an increase, well, we'd only have maybe 2, 3 years left to get the funding difference, and it wouldn't be much money. So it really kind of would defeat the purpose. I think you want that length to really build that fund up so that you have some money to do the improvements. And to that end, one other thing you'll have to be considering, and we can do it next, but you have to have a TIF committee that will make recommendations once it's up and running, and we hopefully have a lot of money in it, to make recommendations to you as to how to spend it. Because ultimately, again, you make those final decisions. But we can reach that after we cross these bridges.
And to that point, the Tax Advisory Committee, what the recommendation would be 2 members of the Town Council, 1 member each of the Economic Development Commission, 1 member of the Conservation Commission, 1 member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Director of Development Services, the Director of Finance, the Assessor, and the Town Attorney. And that's in keeping with the other communities that are adopting these.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I want to make it clear that it goes to P and Z, but the public hearing is held by the town council.
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay, just want to make it clear.
I think that was my point. We just have another bite at the apple if we need it.
Right.
Councilor Sakala.
I guess going on the same thing, who created the policy that, like the booklet that's included in our packet?
I
You did?
drafted
Okay.
these documents.
So I guess my only issue is, in voting for the resolution, are we binding ourselves to how this TIF advisory committee is put forward in the booklet? Because, and the only reason I'm saying this is it says 2 members of the town council. I will not, I'm for this, but I absolutely will not vote for it unless it's spelled out that there's 1 D and 1 R, because I'm not going to go through having 2 of a majority party on any committee again because it hasn't been spelled out. So we either need to fix that now if it's going to bind us to how it is if I vote tonight, or somebody needs to tell me that voting for it tonight won't bind me to not having it spelled out in the policy.
The resolution tonight is just the referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission of the District Master Plan.
Okay.
This document, the TIF policy, can still be adopted at a future town council meeting.
Okay, so the
So we'll make
resolution.
that,
So we got another shot at the apple.
Yes.
Okay, so the resolution has nothing to do with how the committee is created.
Correct.
Thank you.
All set? So a question was asked earlier about successful TIF districts. Are there any in a region in Connecticut or in a general area?
I think I mentioned at the last meeting that 7 communities have adopted it thus far. The most success shown to date is the town of Windsor Locks. The TIF was instrumental in getting the Montgomery Mill building moving towards redevelopment.
Anywhere else in Connecticut? Just is there any, just curious, I mean, I don't know if you know anything anywhere else in Connecticut.
They are utilizing the TIF in their marketing materials
I know
to
New Britain is
developers.
one, correct?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and Bristol.
All right.
Bristol for their entire downtown.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller,
4.
Counselor Srazza,
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak,
4.
Counselor Ungary,
4.
Counselor Bosco,
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati,
4.
Counselor Denny,
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Moving on to item L, resolution authorizing a joint facilities committee to serve as a building committee for the Henry Barnard Roof Construction Project, Phase 2. Make sure I get The resolution. Okay, sorry. Where is it? Sorry. Oh. Resolved that the Enfield the Town Council does hereby appoint the Joint Facilities Committee to serve as the building committee for the Henry Barnard Roof Construction Project Phase 2, submitted on February 13, 2019 by the Town Manager's Office. By Councilor Muller, second by Councilor Crisati. Pretty straightforward resolution. Any questions?
In general, can somebody explain to me what the benefit is of having the Joint Facilities Committee, the roof committee? Sure.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
In order to get the grant money, you have to have a building committee specified by the town council. And it's in response to the grants. We have Chris Cycles here, and
Sorry,
he can,
Chris.
he can
Yeah,
verify what
sorry.
I'm saying is true.
Oh, no, I'm assuming we needed a committee. What I'm saying is, what's the benefit of having the Joint Facilities Committee, the roof committee?
They did the first one, and it's just, part of it. There's not a lot that they have to do, but they have to be there for the grant application, and it just makes it a little bit simpler.
Okay.
Chris, sorry, welcome. Anything else to add? Sorry about that.
Timing.
No, thanks. Sorry. No, exactly what Donna said.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
It's 9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item M, resolution authorizing the preparation of a contract, document drawings, and specifications for the Henry Barnard School Roof Project Phase 2. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council hereby authorize at a minimum the preparation of a contract, document drawings, and the outlined specifications for Phase 2 of the roof replacement at the Henry Barnard School. Henry Barnard School pursuant to Chapter 173 of the Connecticut General Statute, outline specifications for Phase 2 of the roof replacement at the Henry Barnard School pursuant to Chapter 173 of the Connecticut General Statute, prepared on May 14, 2018 by the Town Manager's Office. I know, I just know it, but I had to read it. It was in a resolution. Moved by Councilor Muller. I know, someone make a second? Second by Deputy Mayor Suzak. Any discussion? Chris, anything on this other than, since you waited all night, you want to make sure you have a chance? Yeah? Yeah?
No, I'm good.
You came late?
He's learning. He's learning.
Done this enough. No, I don't have anything else. That's
So someone will make amendment on the date?
other than the date.
That we
Chris,
change
what was the date that you authorized this?
February 13th, 2019. We have submitted on to the town manager's office.
Right, well, yeah, it wasn't May 14th,
No.
2018.
So just use the May 13th date you had in the prior resolution?
The February.
excuse me?
February 13th.
February 13th? All right. So we'll make an amendment? Someone want to make an amendment?
I make an amendment. I already did. Want to have a
February
second?
13, 2019, to amend the date, May 14, 2018, submitted by Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Muller. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, this is going to be voting on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment by show of hands? Opposed? 8 in favor, 0 against. Now, the main motion as amended. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza. 4. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco is out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item N, resolution authorizing the Board of Education to apply for a roof construction grant for the Henry Barnard School Roof Phase 2, whereas the Henry Barnard Elementary School roof needs replacement, and whereas the town is eligible for school construction grant for roof replacement through the State Office of Administrative Services, Therefore, be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council authorize the Enfield Board of Education to apply for the State Department of Administrative Services to accept or reject a grant, and to accept or reject a grant for the replacement of the Henry Barner roof Phase 2. By Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Crissati. Anything in this you want to highlight?
This again is in response to the grant application. There are certain things that the Board of Ed must come up and do, and there's certain things that the town council, and this is part of the submitting of the EDO 49.
Chris, anything in this one?
No. Nope.
I just want to make sure you have your chance.
Pretty straightforward so far.
Roll call, please.
Got a lot of roofs to do. Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza. 4. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 9 in favor, and again.
Thanks for sticking
no
around. Thank you.
abstentions.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Moving on to item 16, public communications. Would anyone like to speak before the council at this time?
15, though, perhaps miscellaneous. We have one matter. I'd like to raise one item from the past. Attorney Denny was kind enough to obtain the lease for the Housing Authority, and just wanted to clarify so people understand. You can read. It's in regard to the improvements that we have to make to the adult daycare. They are.
So we have to take it out of order then, right? We already voted on a resolution.
No, I'm just, for a point of clarification, I just wanted to say that.
Just want to make sure, all right? Just want to make sure.
The lease with the Housing Authority provides that the town has to pay
Yeah,
for
go
those
ahead.
improvements.
It's in paragraph 5 of the lease that was signed in April of 20.
Attorney Denny,
I'm the one that found it.
that's right, he found it.
Right, so that means we do have to pay.
Yes, yes. And Attorney
does
Attorney
Attorney
Denny didn't
Denny
have
want
to,
to submit
he didn't
that
have
for-
to bring that to our attention,
Do you
but he
wanna submit
did, and
that
I
for
thank him
public
for
record?
it.
To be official? Do you want to put that, do you want to submit it for public record? Is it
No.
public record? No?
No, no.
all right.
But I appreciate him being transparent because he
Yeah,
didn't.
no, I agree.
He didn't have to bring
Yeah.
it to our attention, and he did, so thank you.
Yeah.
If he brings it over to the table.
Okay, moving on to item 16, public communications. Bob, sorry. Thank you for being patient. I think you did button on, Bob. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Bob T. Katz, 815 Woodgate Circle. Councilman Sperazza, I like your quote, "Never lose your voice." And and I respectfully to Chris Bromson, he's causing us, the public, to lose our voice. If it's going to be a thing like that, Lori, Bob, your comments were out of order because it wasn't on the agenda. So if it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You can't bring anything up. The council can't bring anything up unless it's on the agenda. So and that should go for the school board also. But, you know, this town has been running for 1683, 280 years of selectman form of government. People had their voice. They could say what they want. In 56 years as a council form of government, people kept their voice. They can say what they want. That's the purpose of these meetings, to bring their grievances to the town council and the town manager. I have a grievance, especially on this abatement on the automobiles. You want your taxes paid within 30 days, but it takes forever and a day to get the abatement. I paid the taxes in December, now, and they had me fill out a form. They're going to have a meeting in February so I could bring the car in. I went out last week. She said, no, they're not going to have that till April. So by the time I get my check, because it goes to the treasurer's office, it takes them 2 weeks to sign the checks because of the last go-around. And now it's going to take 6 months to get the abatement when you want it in 30 days. That's not fair. It's got to work both ways. If you want it in 30 days, we should get our abatement in 30 days. That's my grievance, and we continue to have public speaking at this meeting. Because when you have a special meeting, nobody shows up.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Jack?
Jack doesn't agree with me.
Welcome, Jack.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I remember the days, early days, coming to these meetings, and we did restrict ourselves to what was on the agenda, and if we brought up something that wasn't on the agenda, we were told, hey, that's not on the agenda. If you want it on the agenda, we'll have to put it on an upcoming agenda. Whether that's good or bad, I think it's good that we get through the agenda at least at a reasonable time, although I do remember in previous administrations where we didn't get out of here till 11 o'clock regularly. That's how long the meetings went. Like Joey says, the stacks of stuff were that thick. But anyway, the success of the TIF. I hear about stuff that's out there, but I don't hear anything about dollars in the till. How many dollars have those TIFs produced? The answer is none. So I just don't like knee-jerk reactions to spend money and allocate on things that haven't been proven, and who knows whether they will or not. The other thing is, I'm glad Mr. Wilcox was here to kind of tell everybody exactly what's going on. However, I've been checking those budgets for years myself. I'm not an accountant, but I pay my bills, and I don't spend more than I earn. But I have a suggestion. A lot of these things could easily be put on as definitions in that portion of the thing, like the $2 million that he was talking about. That should be in there. And then that question wouldn't come up. So I think if anything else were to be taken out of his presentation tonight, is that there must be a way, and like I said, I'm not an accountant, but there must be a way where you can asterisk those things and say, kind of explanation-wise, so that these things don't come up with people that are a lot smarter than I am about accounting. So that's all I'm glad that he did that, but my suggestion is that it be a part of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Wendy?
Wendy Costa, 49 Steel Road. I just want to thank, as a member of the Joint Facilities Committee, I want to thank everyone for the resolutions for the roof. We really need to get these roofs moving, so just make sure the money's there. And second of all, I do think the decision made about the NCAA grant for the Enfield Adult Day Center was the right fiscal decision. I've been pretty impressed with the town of Enfield and the number of services that are provided, and I think everyone would like to see all of them continue. But I think that we also have to think long and hard about whether $120,000 for the benefit of 9 residents is sustainable. And maybe it is, and maybe it's not. This allows Dawn to apply for $10,000 of grants somewhere else that we know we can use it. And whether we're going to agree to fund it for $120,000 or $130,000 is your decision. So I don't think the $10,000 one way or the other in this particular adult day center is going to make or break that decision. So I think it left the door open to make a decision based upon how the budgets are looking when the time comes, because I think it's going to be another year of hard decisions that have to be made by you guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Declare public communications closed. Any councilor communications? Deputy Mayor Suzak?
Through the mayor to Chris. Chris, I really would like to, I guess the discussion keeps going on and on and on over again, whether people should sit on inland wetlands and planning and zoning. And I guess we have, a lot of people on commissions, and it's hard to get people that'll do their time. Maybe we can look again at, should these two commissions be combined?
And
They were at one time.
Were, and I know
And
that
it seems like it's an issue that just keeps being brought up over and over again. Either they're separate or they're combined for me, and we need to do something about it.
And I can refer to the town attorney. I know when I was last in that position, we had talked about it. There were pros and cons. We can bring that back up, and we'll place it on a future agenda for discussion and consideration.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Denny?
Yes, on the adult daycare, at one time we had 20 and 25 people going there until a certain individual became the social service director, and then the place went to pot. And that's what the problem is now, and now everybody looks like a hero because we're going to do away with that so we can save money. But at one time, there was over 20 people coming to that place. We eliminated somebody riding on the bus for these individuals. This is not about the person who goes there. This is about the caregiver that gets 4 lousy hours alone that they can do their own business. That's what this is about. And St. Joe's doesn't do that. They charge more money. And you're right that we should look at things that to cut the budget here. One of the things is right out here every single year, $50,000 for police for a 4th of July committee that's nothing but a drunk and a fiasco, as opposed to whatever we're going to spend at the adult daycare. That's all I have to say. 20 or 25 people were there at one time, and then it started to get dismantled when a certain individual became employed here. Thank you.
Counselor Bosco?
Ed, before you leave, you know, I happen to be, I hated to see that program go. I happen to be the one that saved that program back the last time, and the reason why it was going to go was it wasn't paying for itself. And the program was gone. I was number 6 to save the program. And there were caveats that were supposed to be followed that just never got followed up on. And part of it was supposed to be self-sufficient. They were supposed to try to get the membership up even more than what it was back then. They were supposed to try to find grants. They were supposed to do whatever it was so it wouldn't cost taxpayers any money. The problem that happened is it didn't work. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse every year. I know, he's not listening, but you know what? Anyone out there in the public will at least know what the history behind that is. And I think that is one of the greatest programs we have for the elderly people. When they started to take the people off the bus, I was probably one of the ones that was screaming one of the most about it. But the program has done its time. And, you know, with all this home health care now, you know, people come in their houses and they take care of them at home. And with all the nursing stuff, and the program just doesn't work. And if it did work, we wouldn't be one of 2 in the whole state of Connecticut that's running this program. And to get rid of this program is really going to be heavy heart. But financially and fiscally, we could either tell 600 residents that we have no money for them, or 8 people, we have a place to go for 4 hours a day. There is no good decision on this one, and no matter what, this is one that you're going to lose sleep over, but we have to do what's right for the most people in the town.
Counselor Ungary?
I just wanted to address Mr. Tikaz's comments about my comments being out of order. It does say on our agenda, Counselor Communications and report of special committees, and that's what I was doing, was reporting on what my committees are doing. And so it's perfectly in order.
Special committee too, so I can.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Good night, everyone. Have a good night.